Congratulations. Yeah? Yes? Hercules, the coveted first badge, which gives you nothing. Where's the kitty? She's right over there. I think my wife has her. She was holding her just a second ago. Good afternoon, Dante. Dante's game room. Happy Sunday to everyone. We'll see what happens today. Yesterday was a dud. What am I doing for the holiday? Nothing. Making YouTube videos. There's a new brunch restaurant that opened. I don't know if they'll be open tomorrow or not. Might try that. Damn, what's Jess's problem? Yeesh. I'll be eating. Yeah, I was gonna do some metabolism tomorrow. I don't know about you guys. I was thinking about respiring as well. Maybe even perspiring. Probably some of that too. Earth is flat. Okay, what up? If you feel that strong about that and you can back it up, all you gotta do is push the button. Hey, Planet Peterson, I'm going crazy. Am I going crazy, or are you republishing some videos, clips after some time? I have a clips channel, and the way everybody does clips channels is they take a video that's been uploaded to their main channel, and they take segments of it to just focus on one particular topic or whatever, and then they upload it. So I have two channels. My clips channel, yes, it's a clips channel. Like so many, it's so many YouTubers have a clips channel, and that's what that is. So yes, it's unoriginal content, but that's how a clips channel works. Why aren't you live on TikTok? I am live on TikTok, John Webster. I don't know what you're talking about. Little Caesars or Domino's? Little Caesars all day. Did you see Ian on Jubilee? Yeah, I didn't watch the entire thing, but I watched probably 45 minutes of that Jubilee thing with Jordan Peterson. The way Danny just utterly destroyed him was so funny. Ian was a little bit too polite, but Jordan Peterson was very, very upset by the time Ian got up there. And that creepy posture Jordan Peterson had toward the end. It was like his head was where his sternum should be. And he just was like, yeah, well, that's the nature of the metaphorical substrate that you atheists don't understand. So, yeah. Yes. Well, it depends on what you mean by what you mean. Did I see Kirk get rocked at Cambridge? Sorry if you've talked about it. Yeah, I've seen a bunch of clips. I'm so zoomed in today. Yeah, I don't have to be. I can zoom out. Maybe I should. I don't know. Although, I mean, you're not really getting much by me zooming out. Verk is happening here. No, god damn it. Wait. Oh, never mind. There we go. Yay! Zoomed out Peterson. Oh yeah, you can see Spanky if I do that. That probably is better. How's the mobile preview? Yeah. There we go. Did I see Danny on Jubilee? Yes, I was just talking about it. And the way he riggedy wrecked JP. Oh, that was so funny. And yes, I'm incredibly bitter that I have never been asked to go on Jubilee. Incredibly bitter. Local pizzeria over Little Caesars or Domino's? My local pizzeria is like some of the best pizza I've ever had. So I will definitely pick them. Will you consider playing guitar for the channel? I can play guitar right now because I don't have any guests. I learned a new song yesterday. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. This chord is so hard. There we go. That's not really how the song goes. I'm embellishing it. I mean, that is the chord progression. Whoa, we are way out of focus on TikTok. Come on, I'm right here. What is going on? I'm embellishing it quite a bit, but it's more fun that way. So, what the hell are you doing, bruh? I was playing guitar. I think that was like super obvious, like just almost incredibly obvious that that's what I was doing. Explain grape nuts, checkmate, atheists. I kind of liked those. My grandparents always had them. My grandparents, I don't know if it was because they were poor farmers from South Dakota, but they were like, they babysat my brother, my sister, and I while my parents worked when I was really young. And they always just had the plainest cereal. So it was grape nuts, shredded wheat, the original shredded wheat, where it came in the plastic package where it looked like a hay bale. It was like a square of shredded wheat that big, and you had to crumple it up into your milk, or plain Cheerios. That was it. I don't know. I kind of liked the grape nuts. Luckily, you can't get a copyright strike for covers. No, you can, and this video might get demonetized. But maybe my embellishments will make it so TikTok can't tell what it was, or YouTube can't tell what it was. Um, what's the worst argument you've gotten into with a religious person? I mean, like literally last week, a guy said, because I believe in God in my mind, then God is real. I mean, that might be the worst one. I don't know if they were being sincere or not. Um, Man, that's a good question. What's the worst argument? Can't they just all be a tie? I don't know. Did I see the Sean Carroll and Eric Weinstein? From what I've heard, it's pronounced Weinstein for them, Brett and Eric. Yeah, I listened to it and it was. I mean, a lot of it was Eric just speaking in terms that Sean Carroll and like 50 other people on the planet can understand, which I think is actually really cool. Because I've actually wanted to do that. I've wanted to interview a physicist and tell them, look, don't try to explain it in terms that'll make sense to anybody. Explain it in your guys' terms. And I think that that's a necessary humbling experience. People might think that Eric was trying to like obfuscate something, but Sean Carroll didn't say that anything that Eric was saying was false. He just said like his paper doesn't account for anything special or unique or whatever. But yeah, it was, I listened to it. Anything that April said, yes, that is the worst argument. Dude, funny enough, that April video is 2.5 years old, but I started getting a lot of notifications for it on YouTube lately. I was like, what is going on? And I went and looked at it, and I could draw a picture, but it always makes the camera go way out of focus. So basically, the video, it starts off and then it levels out, but lately it's going like straight up again. So for whatever reason, and there's one other video where this is happening too, an old video that's like 2+ years old. YouTube is all of a sudden like, this is what the people want to see. That's just kind of funny that that's happening. April is the worst. She was the number one comment on, I've actually talked to her twice, but the number one comment on that video puts it perfectly. It says something like, this was incredibly unbearable, and I both loved and hated every second of it. And that is, I don't hate April. I do, but I also just have this odd fascination, almost infatuation with April at the same time. It's not Stockholm syndrome. It's something different. I'm not quite sure. Will you ever come out on the Atheist Community of Austin shows? Yeah, I got booked to be on the Atheist Experience, but not until August or something like that. I don't remember. They emailed me and like, hey, you're going to be on the Atheist Experience 5 months from now. It's like, I mean, okay, thanks. Have I ever spoken with Dave Farina? Yeah, Dave and I did a collab video maybe a month ago. We're going to do another one later this week. Funny enough. So, spoiler alert. Bro got clapped by Sabur. Sabur didn't even say anything except for Dennis Noble said. He didn't. Well, Big Daddy, you're my favorite follower. One of my favorite followers. Sorry. Who was worse, April or Hadasa? Well, Hadasa was more unbearable. Like, April was it. I almost don't want to say this, but April had such a basal intellect that you couldn't help but find her adorable and like laugh at her for that. And so all of her pompousness and hubris wasn't coming from a place of really like the kind of narcissism that it was for Hadasa. Hadasa was just, it was fun to laugh at Hadasa for being a terrible person. It was fun to laugh at April for being a moron. So you couldn't be offended by April. Sorry, bad tag. I didn't see a tag anywhere. Still don't see it. April was hilarious. Bro. No, it's not bro, it's bruv. Women are dope. I mean, I don't know. I like women. April was more like a human Rubik's Cube. How does a mind get like this? she was a specimen. uh, hello?
Hey, Penny Peterson.
What's up?
I'm 35 for TikTok. Um, I've been debating zealots as well, and one of the things that they've asked me about that kind of stumped me was how did we come from how could you explain asexual evolution to sexual evolution? How uh, how that happened in our evolutionary history?
Um, I don't know. I bought a book about the evolution of sex because that is a really interesting question. And it turned out to be a book about like copulation, not strictly sexual reproduction, which is the unification of gametes, because plants do sexual reproduction, right? So it turned out to be a look into the fossil record of the evolution of that. Basically, it's a good book. It's a cool book. The cover is two Tyrannosaurus Rex skeletons banging, but there's a black censor bar on it. It's a what is it? I think it's called Evolution of the Deed. I think that's what it's called. Um I don't know where it is on my bookshelf. It's somewhere over there. But anyways, yeah, I would like to, if anybody knows a book about that, I would like to read what some of the ideas and hypotheses are, because clearly you need fusion of cells, right? And they need to be haploid cells. Now, how would that happen? I don't know. It almost certainly though would have happened with an organism that could probably do both, like some form of asexual reproduction, but also could fuse cells. So it would have been sexual reproduction. I would guess almost certainly predates biological sex. At least logically, that's what it's saying to me, because just think about what would make more sense to have evolved. A singular organism that is capable of having cells fuse, or an organism that becomes, what would you even call that, stratified or whatever, where different members are fusing cells together, you know? So, or in simplest terms, I think sexual reproduction almost certainly would predate biological sex. So, yeah, but I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much, though. What was the name of the book that you said? Because I have
It's
a bad
called
connection.
Dawn of
Could
the
you maybe type it
Deed.
in the comments?
Can I do that? Dawn of the Deed. That is what the name of the
Oh,
book
damn it.
is. Who's it by? John. the guy's name is the guy's name is John Long. That's hilarious. I wonder if he goes by Long Johnson now. John Long. Yep, that's his name. Michael. I think I've talked to Michael before.
Yeah, hey, we've talked before, and I just did some more exploration of the fine tuning argument, and I still do think it's a weak argument. So I just want to preface by saying that. But I kind of listened to Sean Carroll's 5 arguments, and I had some basically my my conclusion that I draw here is that I think the fine tuning argument is it's kind of like the simulation argument, in my opinion, that it's stronger than we're like giving it credit for, in my opinion. I don't think you should believe in a theistic. I think it supports more deistic ideas than theistic, obviously. I don't think that it's I think it's a good argument in the
Well,
sense that it could be falsified.
well, the thing is, deists don't go around arguing fine tuning. Deists are happy to live their lives anonymously and shut up about things. It is people who think that a personal revelatory God is the one uh, that fine tuning supports. And so I would say that it's a terribly weak argument for that. I do think it's a good argument for deism, but I think that's the only avenue it can really lead you to.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I was just curious because yeah, I had watched your video, like you recommended, about your refutation of it, and which basically I've realized mirrored Sean Carroll's. So yeah, I was just making sure that yeah we were being clear
Yeah, he
that I think the
copied me. It
reviews.
was really disingenuous of him.
That's awesome. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on how it supports deism. But yeah, you're right that yeah they're not loud. Deists aren't loud in that sense. So anyway, that's all I wanted to
Yeah.
say.
Okay, no problem.
Peace. I don't know how to leave. I'm sure
I'll
you got
do
it
it
for me.
for you. I don't know how to leave. I was going to try to say something like sad and deep about relationships with regard to that, but I couldn't really think of anything. Okay, sorry. No, I wasn't looking at the other screen. If I buy your book, could you send it to a penal institution? Um, wait, where is that? Yeah, it's Iceland. They're the ones that have the penis museum. There is international shipping, but it's like horrendously expensive. But if you get the ebook, then it's just instant. And you don't need to be anywhere. You just have to have internet, I guess. Um, but no, in all seriousness, if you buy it from my store, I can ship it anywhere in the United States. Do do do. uh, I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know. How can inmates get mail? That's an interesting question. I assume they can, but does it have to? So does a prison have like a mailbox, and then the inmate they just? I don't know. It's an interesting question. What's my least favorite argument for God? I don't know. I'm always so terrible when people ask me these kinds of questions. It doesn't matter what it's about, what the subject is, when people ask me favorite, least favorite, whatever. I can never come up with anything. Least favorite argument for God. I guess tag. It's just so annoying. I am trying to bring Justin up, but they're not connecting. I don't know what's going on. Look at the trees. Yeah. Yeah, whatever begs the question. Yeah, those they're not they're not even fun anymore. The argument from design. Yeah, those ones just aren't any fun. Justin, I'm going to disconnect you, but try to reconnect. I don't know. It was just spinning in infinity. Where's the little bang? The existence of Big Bang implies little bang. If there's a Big Bang, then where are the missing links of intermediate bangs leading up to it? Checkmate, atheists. That's definitely one I've never heard before. Hello, what's up?
Yeah, hello?
Yes, what's up?
Yeah, I want to give my argument for God's existence, please.
Well, since you said please, then I'll allow it.
Wait, before I give the argument, what's the distinction between analytic and synthetic truths? Go ahead.
I don't know.
You don't know. So you don't know this basic distinction between different types of facts.
Man, are you that
So
guy that came
how
up
are
here
we
that one time
expected to
and said,
understand
no.
implication of the argument?
Anyways, are you that guy that came up here that one time and said, hey, what's the, how did it go? I used to have it memorized. The, here, I'll look it up on YouTube.
So you just concede that you don't know basic logical distinctions, Tubby? Yes or no?
I don't know what you mean by those terms. I could probably sit around and think about it.
That's what I thought, Plumpy.
I know
So you don't know this basic distinction between
I know that analytical
entry-level
truths are
logical
true by
concepts.
definition.
Yeah, now he's just Googling the answer, chat. He looks terrible. You guys support this guy? Look at him.
No. I'm looking up that
Look at him,
thumbnail because I'm
He's
looking
actually
for that
face down,
thumbnail.
ass up right now, and the argument hasn't even been rendered yet. He looks terrible optically and
What was
rhetorically. He's getting his back blown out.
Atemporal
literally
unconditional
choking on my rhetorical
precondition that
diagram.
is necessarily non-contingent. Are you
Non-contingent,
that?
universally
Oh, you're
ultimate
that
grounds
guy.
and instantiates all synthetic predicates. So go ahead and respond to the argument, fat boy. Which premise do you reject, Tubby?
You haven't given a premise.
Sorry. I did just give a premise. Can you repeat what I just said?
You didn't give a premise. You just
Sorry, you're not capable of
you
repeating
rattled
what I
off
just
a
said. That's
bunch
gonna be
of
a
like
concession.
descriptions.
Blunder number two on your end, Tubby. I need you to repeat everything I just said because I gave you a premise, the first premise of my argument, which follows via modus tollens.
Modus tollens.
Yes,
if
sir.
P
You know
then
logical
Q, not Q, therefore not P. You didn't do that.
Sorry, sir. Just to be very clear about this, I gave you the first premise of my argument was a conditional statement. Can you repeat everything I just said?
Well, I said atemporal unconditional precondition that is necessarily non-contingent, and then I don't remember what you said after that.
Yeah, so you're just not tracking. That's a tracking error on your part.
On my fart? You mean part? He said fart. Like he literally said fart. We can't hear you when you're not on the app. We can't hear you. YouTube, you guys can't see this, but here I can see that coffee cup thing, YouTubers. That means that they're there, but they don't have the app open, so you can't hear anything that oh, he dropped. Well, okay. So he just conceded the entire debate, and you all saw it. Okay. Oh, Tubby. That's funny. Uh, yeah, he didn't give any premise, and he certainly didn't. He didn't give a modus tollens, because he didn't give a syllogism. Even I don't know what was going on there. Man, I don't know how hard that kid's dad hit him, but it clearly wasn't even close to hard enough because he still acts up. What's up,
Yeah, hard
Tristan?
enough. I don't think the dad actually exists.
His probably not.
Right. I actually talked to him yesterday. Apparently, one of the channels I was going to debate in Coco, the Controversial Compass. He knows that guy. His name is Clark. Apparently, yesterday he joined a live that I was in, and he said that infinity is in black holes. I said, "Infinite what?" And he goes, and he just broke down into like his Philbro like auto setting. And he's like, it doesn't need to be, it's pure information. It's just automatic infinity. And I was just like, yeah, infinite what? And I was like, infinite time, infinite like energy, infinite like states of progression. What do you mean? And he was just like, yeah, it's just an infinite like dichotomous situation, like, and just Philbro autopilot took over. So it was a really, really funny part. I wish I would have had it recorded, but anyways. All right, I'm out of here. See ya.
You're welcome. Wait, you didn't say thank you. I meant
I reversed my I hit go back so quick. What the
why did I say you're welcome? Thanks for coming up. That's what I meant.
All right. I grant that. Have a good day.
Anyways, Flatzoid wants a piece of me. I debated Flatzoid once, and it was actually fairly cordial. Flatzoid is in my Discord server, and it's really funny. He posts links to his videos in there every once in a while, but Kitty, what are you making those noises for? Sounds like she has indigestion. Man, I can't read that. When that notification pops up, I couldn't read it. Maybe let's put it over here. Kitty, what's wrong? What's a kitty the matter? She keeps running away every time we let her out, so we haven't been letting her out very often. And so she does these very throaty, sad sounding. They kind of sound like that. A blunder on Kitty's fart. Yeah, is that when he decided to rage quit? He said fart instead of part. Yeah, that was. He went off the app as soon as he said fart, and then he was so embarrassed by himself that he wouldn't allow himself to come back. That's actually really funny. How you did that perfectly? Yeah, I don't know. I wish you could hear her and then hear me do it, because I think I can specifically imitate my particular cat almost perfectly. Meow, meow, meow. Oh man, if I start doing that, then I just won't stop. Come on, Sydney, don't say stuff like that. Hi, Kitty. Kitty, TikTok wants to talk to you. Come here. Kitty cat Peterson. Kitty cat Peterson. Oh, wait, did I say TikTok? Because I meant TikTok and YouTube. Oh, who's just a baby. Oh. And I'm just going to do this until we get a guest. Celtics in 7. The Celtics are out of the playoffs. What does that mean? Kitty, what does that mean? Oh, are you getting antsy now? I'll just sit on my lap. She's half the time I do my streams, she just sits on my lap. No, she ain't about all that. He left the chat as if he actually farted. Yeah, no, like he was so embarrassed that he just ran away. Cutlery duck. You know what Darth Dude's been showing up recently? Oh, no, why Darth Dude's been showing up recently? I don't know. I don't know. It could just be a cumulative thing. I mean, Darth, he is live streaming hours every single day on TikTok. I open up the app like first thing in the morning because I put out a video. I try to check how my video did the day before, and then I upload one, and I basically always see him. So it could just be that he's slowly, ramping up. A year ago there was one Darth simp on TikTok. Now there's like what? More than one? Have I read any books on spirituality? No. I did just actually I have like one chapter left. I have been reading this book about science tackles the afterlife. It's really interesting. I'm going to be creating some content on something I learned there later this week, hopefully. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened recently, and I'm going to create content on it to, you need to get on that stuff right away while it's still algorithmically potent. I don't know. But I mean, I can talk about this weird thing in the 1920s where Harry Houdini was locking women in wooden boxes and trying to get them to summon up ectoplasm out of their vaginas. Real thing that happened. I can talk about that whenever because it's already old news. So. My girlfriend just sharded. How do you know that? Were you like 69ing? Is that why you know that? Is that how you know that? Peterson is mad because Darth is always eating his lunch. Oh, jeez. So desperate to rage bait. Have I ever smashed a guitar like Pete Townsend? One time we had this really cheap, crappy acoustic guitar when I was in high school. And it already had a hole in it. I don't remember how that happened, but it was broken and it didn't sound good and it was cheap anyways. So I took it in the driveway and I smashed it. And it was actually really hard to do. It took several smashes on the cement for it to actually start to break apart. Why do you even give these people the time of day? I almost never tell anybody what time it is, actually. The only time that sometimes happens is when they say good morning and I say, oh, well, actually, I'm on the West Coast, so it's still morning for me, but Ross Soul and Catholic traditionalist. That Catholic traditionalist. I've never heard that dude before, but he came into the live stream Justin was doing on Friday and he just screamed for about 2 minutes, and then Justin finally said, okay, you will not converse. You're just filibustering, so goodbye. But what's my favorite movie of all time? Dances with Wolves. You can't just say that about Houdini and not elaborate. My girlfriend is freaking out. She loves Houdini. I'm going to create a video on it probably this week. So have I ever seen Eli? It's a horrible movie. I've never heard of a movie called Eli. I've seen the book of Eli, and that's got is it Denzel Washington? The guy who he's blind, and they only have one Bible left in the entire world, but it's a Braille Bible. It's a weird movie. It's kind of satisfying. He's like the Punisher in a weird kind of way, but it's like a dystopian futuristic book or book movie, and then the bad guy gets his comeuppance in the end. I don't know. Funny how Flatzoid is now just Bible stuff because he got debunked on Flat Earth so much. If that's the case, then that's hilarious. Hey, change the name of his channel. I can't remember what to, though. Peterson, I enjoy your work and channel. I enjoyed watching your debate with Sal on Modern Day Debate. Both of you are so cordial and pleasant. Would love to discuss consciousness with you. Oh, yeah, that could be fun. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect with Sal. I've seen Sal be really unhinged before, but he was nice, so I was nice the whole time. Oh, shit. What the hell was that? Okay, sorry, but what was that? So like this is a dongle for my iPhone, and it has a USB plug in it. So this is how I can use my microphone with my phone. And I was sitting here just like messing with it. I don't know if you guys could see. I have to always be fidgeting. I'm usually fidgeting with my screwdriver, but I just got a sliver from it. Like, how is that possible? It's a freaking piece of rubber and plastic. Sorry for the jump scare. Oh, creality. Yeah. Creation reality. Something. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. It was God. Yeah. I just got punished. Somebody asked me earlier if I've done my Spanky devotions, and I didn't answer that question, and now I'm being punished for it. Now I'm going to have to go find a mouse to get this out of my paw. What's the moral of that story? I have no idea. I don't know if I've ever actually read it before. Do you have ADHD? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if I could be successfully diagnosed with that, I guess. Damn it. I know where there's a tweezers. Shameless plug of Peterson's book as he slithers. I didn't bring up my book. When did I do that? Or did I? I do very often forget things that I literally just said. But I don't remember saying anything about it. I was just talking about the sliver I have. -1 HP, yeah. Has Peterson had any good flirfs in yet? We haven't had anybody in yet, except for some that word salad crybaby who accidentally said fart instead of part, and then he ran away. It is tech. Oh, it's scrolling above my head, right? But somebody on YouTube said that, so they can't see that. So I don't know. I brought it up. Oh, they're the one shamelessly plugging my book. Okay, Cutlery Duck. I get you. Man, I'm sorry to not be able to entertain you guys, except for playing guitar, grabbing my cat, and now being in pain. It's just Planet Peterson becomes a slapstick comedy channel. What do you mean this is entertaining? Yeah, my pain. Can I show you guys? It's right. It's not gonna focus, but you can kind of see that black dot. That's it. That's maybe if I just back away. It's right there. I have 2 webcams, one for TikTok, one for YouTube, so. Pain is funny, yeah. My wife and I were talking about this the other day. I don't remember what we were talking about that led us into this, but I said something to the effect of, no, toddlers are the most violent, psychopathic people in the world because there's nothing they think is funnier. First of all, they don't understand the concept of like sharing and fairness unless it's happening to them. And they find absolutely nothing funnier than other people's pain. And she said, why is that? And I have no idea. God damn it. There was a guest and then they left right away before I could bring them up. Pray to Spanky to heal my pain. I could just go get a tweezers. I know where there is one. I'm going to go do that. You might need to go to the emergency room. All right. Psychopathy is not the same thing as sadism. Sure.
Hello.
Duct tape, yeah, that could work. Hello, Simonimil. What's up?
Hey, I just want to tell you, man, you being hurt, that proves God is punishing you. You should repent of your sins and you should become a Christian. That's a sign from God.
Is it wrong to cause suffering?
Bro, I'm trolling. I'm trolling, bro.
I mean, I figured, but
Yeah. Is it wrong to cause suffering?
yeah.
I guess emotionally I would say that. I don't know how I would substantiate that though.
I don't think that it is necessarily wrong. I think even suffering
contextual, I guess.
can stand in causal relation to something good. Like it hurts to get a shot, but that shot could prevent you from ever getting polio, right? So you want to
True, I
hear
guess
something
it is,
super fucked up? There's this YouTuber who I hate, and his channel name is A Messenger of Truth. He has a TikTok channel too. And I don't know if he's rage bait or if he's genuine, because he sounds like an evil version of like an apologist or whatever. What's actually really funny is on YouTube, he highly censors comments. But on TikTok, he just flat out has comments disabled for his whole channel. I saw a video he posted this morning. He didn't post it this morning, but I saw it this morning. And he was reading a comment somebody wrote on YouTube, and the comment said, "Would you tell a child with cancer God did this to you?" And he dead ass looked at the camera and said, "Yes, and hopefully that would put the fear of God into them so that they repent, so they avoid going to hell." He unironically said that.
What the Wait.
Yeah.
So there we have.
All right, dude. Dude's been celebrating for 1 month and 5 days.
Yo, what's up?
Trying to get a sliver out of my finger.
It doesn't look like it's going very successful.
No, I tore the skin around it, but now every
I just
time
want to say, dude, I just came on here because I didn't even know you were on TikTok. I just always see your YouTube.
Oh yeah.
So I always be watching those. I like the ones with Darth Dawkins or whatever his goofy ass is.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I actually
I mean,
just
they're not
talked
really
to him.
good.
I just talked to
They're
him
not like
yesterday
constructive.
briefly. It was pretty funny.
Did you post it?
Not on YouTube because it's only like 2 minutes long, but it's on my TikTok. It's the second video.
Dude, I feel like that. Like, how do you even argue with that dude?
Well, you can't, because anytime you try to articulate a thought, he mutes you and says, "Why are you dodging my question? If you're going to be dishonest, I'm going to ban you. Final warning."
Dude, I went on his thing and I was like, did you get like a face review? And he was like, I think he like has like a superiority complex or something, because he was like calling himself like
100%.
and it was like really weird. But then he gave me like his 3 rules of the live, and then he tried to like precept me, and I was like, yeah, how are you like, couldn't that argument work for literally like any god ever? And he
It
was
could
like,
work for
well,
anything ever. Yeah, you
literally.
could just say Gary Milne's divorce papers are the necessary grounding for whatever.
I know, and you can't argue it.
No, you can't.
All right, bro. I was just saying hi. Catch you later.
Sounds good. Johnny has been waiting longer than that person's username is just a potato emoji. I'm looking forward to that.
What's up, man?
Trying to get a sliver out of my finger. I think I might have to give up though. I think I made it worse.
So, to go to politics or whatever, when they have these hearings in Congress and they're asking these people these questions and they just absolutely refuse to answer, is there any possible way that we can get around that? Like, why aren't these people held accountable when they just flat out refuse to answer simple, basic questions? Like, how can we change this?
I have no idea. You can't, like, it would be nice to say something like if you do that in a court of law, you're found in contempt, right?
Yeah.
And then, so it would be tempting to do something like that for Congress, but then, like, if you don't answer a question with yes, no, or I don't know, then you could be held in contempt. But then what's to stop the other side from disingenuously asking loaded questions, and then you're forced to say yes or no? Like, do your parents know you're an alcoholic? Well, you can't say, no matter what you say, you're conceding their question, you know?
Yeah, like, do you still beat your wife?
Yeah, shit like that. So I'm sure there's something they could do where they find them in contempt, where like there's like a review process or something for questions. But yeah, I don't know. It would just something to the effect of your consideration for the position is revoked. But I don't know. I mean, because the president has the authority to nominate whoever they want, but they have to be pushed through by Congress. So yeah, I feel they have to do something like that, and it shouldn't just be for them. It should be for everything, like for presidential debates and whatever else.
Yeah, it's just so unbelievably frustrating. It's ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
You're welcome. Why did I did it again?
I don't know. I didn't say thank you, man.
I know, and I did this to another person too. I think it's because I'm so fixated on this GDMF sliver.
You're just a polite dude. That's all it is.
No. Well, actually, kind of. All right. Thanks for coming up.
Hi, man.
Well, all they really have to do is say, yeah, so the question was, just do the PP strategy.
Hey, so, I hope the Splinter comes out, first of all. And also, I just kind of want to talk about, like, the enlightened atheist, because I've seen this so many times, and it's sort of annoying. And it's not like I am against atheism or anything. Like, believe what you want to believe, but...
We're going with the Elmer's glue, everybody.
fire, but I've come across the situations so much with an atheist or atheist where there's like, oh, you believe in that? Obviously, there's nothing after. Like, they came to the most obvious conclusion after deconstructing a religion, and they think they're like Einstein. And I just want to know your thoughts on that, because I don't know.
So there are plenty of atheists who think that, we live in a I assume you do too, in a Western society, and it's been most deeply influenced by Christianity, obviously, right? So there are atheists who basically take the position that I think atheism or Christianity is as silly and false and stupid, and there's no better reason to believe it than any other mythology, than Zeus or anything else. So with the same, like, if somebody, like, imagine if somebody ran for president and they said, I believe in Thor, they would be the laughingstock of the world. Now, if you regard the myths of Thor as being just as, or if you regard Christianity as being just as false and stupid as Nordic gods, myth stories, then, I can understand how an atheist may come across as being extremely crass and uncharitable and unfair because they're downplaying something that is an integral part of our culture. But I mean, it's absolutely their prerogative to do it, and I don't see any like logical issue with it. It's not like, I don't know what to compare it to. Like, there are all kinds of things that we don't know the answer to, and so, but are certainly within the realm of possibility. And when these people get pushed out or laughed at, it's probably not exactly fair. But again, if you hold that position about Christianity, I don't really see how. I mean, I get that they sound like the typical Reddit atheist or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know if I said much there that you can work with, but that's my response.
That's okay. I just wanted to know what you thought. But yeah, I'm not like against atheists or anything. Like, it's not like an against all atheist thing or anything like that. It's just something I've come across, and it's sort of annoying. But I guess my next question is like, so like, I'm an agnostic, and I guess I just want to know what you think about how I think about that. So I think that it's kind of funny to think that we have a definitive answer to if there is a God or whatever God means, when like it was only a century ago when we were like enslaving people and all that shit. So like, we clearly are not the pinnacle of like knowledge, you know? It was only a century ago since all that shit happened, and I think it's crazy to think we have an absolute answer to what a God is right now. So the best thing to say is like, I don't know, but I'm open to whatever happens.
Do you believe in God?
No. Well,
Oh.
I don't know.
Right.
not sure.
Well, I'm an agnostic atheist, so I don't believe in God, and I don't think that anybody can know that a God exists. That's the agnosticism part of it. So, I didn't really understand the point you're trying to make about like slavery, or like you don't think it's honest for people to say they know God exists?
Not solely because of slavery, but just as an example to like how far our knowledge has come. It's not really that great when you think about stuff that was happening a century ago or a couple of centuries ago, and to think that we somehow know that there is a God or there isn't a God is kind of like silly to me, when it was just a century ago when we had all that flawed sort of knowledge, if that makes sense.
I guess. I mean, believing in God it's a very different kind of, it's like a metaphysical claim or whatever. It's not an empirical claim, I guess. So, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily comparing believing in God today with believing in some sort of like empirical thing that we used to think in the past, or I mean, the slavery thing is more like a cultural issue, but it was justified based on, it was attempted to be justified based on arguments that we have proven are not true, I guess I would say. But however, you could look at maybe like a probabilistic sense of invoking God's necessity and try to undermine that or whatever by looking at the historical record. And the historical record shows just the retreat of God being a necessary explanation for anything. In other words, God of the gaps, right? God used to be the explanation for all kinds of things. Why did the natural disaster happen? Because God made it happen for these reasons. Now we know why natural disasters happen today, and all this other kind of stuff. So,
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know your thoughts on that too, and that was pretty helpful. So, yeah, I guess that's about it for me. I'll let somebody else take the stage. Thanks.
you're welcome. Potato. The glue is
Hello,
hardening,
Brian.
everybody. This sliver will be gone soon. What up, Swiss cheese?
How are you doing?
Fine.
Okay, I just want to ask you, what's your opinion on determinism?
What's my position on determinism?
Yeah.
I generally think that determinism makes the most sense, and I would say it's true. I have had very smart people explain to me that certain physics experiments that deal with Bell's inequality theorem demonstrate that hard determinism isn't true unless, now you can hold to it if you take a many worlds interpretation of, or an Everett interpretation of what happens when the wave function collapses. But yeah. In essence, I think I'm a determinist, and theists are too. They just lie about it, or they don't understand.
Mm-hmm. So you don't believe in free will?
No.
No? Okay, great. Also, I wanted to know, like, what's the best way you deal with presuppositionalists? Because, like, usually they have some strong arguments, no?
Yeah. I actually have a lot of different strategies. I will invoke Spanky, and Spanky has exactly all of the properties that the God they believe in has, but Spanky reveals to me that the Christian God is false, and that melts their brains every single time. That's one way of doing it. Or you can do the Spanky argument for anything. You can say prolapsed dog's anus is that which grounds. I usually say butthole worms, actually. I say that butthole worms are the necessary grounding for all truth claims or whatever. And they're like, well, could you define what butthole worms are? And then I just say, yeah, they are that which instantiates and substantiates all logic claims and truth claims and knowledge claims. And then they'll say, yeah, but can't a butthole worm could, like, we know what those are, so it can't be God. I'm like, oh, well, you believe that God manifested himself in flesh. So there's no logical argument you can give me where God can do that, but God cannot be, well, it's not God. It just has the same definition, not definition, but properties of God. And then I just say, yeah, but we call it butthole worms, and there we go. It's an uncorporeal. The real one is an uncorporeal concept that just exists in a abstract realm or whatever, just like God. So, yeah, there's other approaches to it as well, but
you should use Clambadrav as an example rather, no?
No, I will not
Clambadrav
ever
is dope.
appeal to Clambadrav, because I've been using Spanky before Clambadrav was ever conjured up, so I will never be a member of Clambadrav. I don't even know what that guy's name is. I've never talked to him before. I don't know if he knows I exist, but he doesn't know it, but we're enemies. even though we're on the same side and we have the same argument.
You don't like deconstruction?
What?
Deconstruction is the guy who invented the Compositional. You don't like him?
No, I don't have a problem with him. But we're enemies.
But don't worry. You just have to open your heart and Compositional will come to you. Okay? Don't
No,
worry.
that's what I say about Spanky. God damn it. You have to open your heart and bosom, actually. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say. Yeah, I just love you, bro.
Oh, thanks.
Have a good day.
You too. I didn't say you're welcome. Yay! All right, the glue on the outside is hardened. As for the inside, I don't trust it yet. You need to open your wallet for full Jesus cover. Yeah. Yeah, Spanky only asks you to open your heart and bosom. Jesus demands that you open your wallet. Mormon Church takes like what, 10%? Christian churches, they got that collection plate. What is up, Catalyst?
Sorry, I'm a fan. I just want to say your precept shit is so funny, and I love watching it, and like to keep doing your content, bro. It's actually so fun to watch. Thank you. I've been watching you for like 8 months now. It's like actually the best. It's so funny to watch.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of stupid people out there.
Yeah, dude. Yo, here we go. All right, I'll see you.
Thanks. I very nearly said you're welcome. The thought happened, but no like motor activity yet happened. And I was like, nobody said thank you. Why do you keep doing this? Embarrassing.
Hey, what's going on, man?
A Goofy movie? Dude, fucking goated PFP, man.
Yep.
We listen to each other's eyes. I don't actually know the words, but
I don't think anyone does.
So what's up?
I kind of just wanted to talk about, I guess, your perspective on the prompt that says there's no evidence for God. Like, when you said there's no evidence, do you mean like empirical evidence, like things you can conclude scientifically, like physical things?
Well, to me, that's the only thing I can imagine that would even count as evidence.
Yeah.
So that would be, yeah, probably.
But so I know I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna when I say this, I'm not attempting to make it seem like you don't know this. I know you probably know this already, but for God, right? Like, I guess the perspective of God in the first place, at least in his ontology, is that like he's immaterial. He's supernatural, right? So like he's not going to be observable in the natural world, or at least not in the materialistic sense, unless he reveals himself like in Abrahamic religions, Christianity, and stuff like that.
Sure. And I would say that the claim that you were revealed in some sort of special, non-physical, non-naturalistic way of God's existence, I would consider that evidence, but I would dismiss it. I think you can dismiss it, which means we're back to, like, it's a claim of evidence, but I don't think that it really is evidence. And I think claims like that are just utterly meaningless because anybody can make that claim. And it's essentially like the problem of, I don't know that when you see the color, or what you see as the color red is identical to what I see. Revelation, it doesn't matter if you, even if you're getting your revelation from the Bible, it still is the same problem. Like, even if it's the same story, I still don't know what your revelation was. So
yeah, well, or even outside, like me personally, I don't think like God's interacting with like the world, but like let's just say we have a God who created the universe, right? But because he's supernatural and a spatial, right, where he's not observable in any way, how would we get evidence? It kind of like I guess like the statement of there's no evidence for God, at least from a standpoint outside of like an epistemology, it kind of is just redundant. Like if what you mean by evidence is only physical and God is non-physical, right, non-observable, then obviously there wouldn't be this observable kind of physical evidence, but this kind of
Yeah.
inductive case of logic, right, making arguments for God's existence.
Well, but what I would say, which I think kind of bridges the point you're making and my view of it, is let me just go back to the case I was giving where you are specially revealed and the claim is that the revelation is, you know, it's magic, right? It's
Yeah.
it's supernatural in origin or whatever. Well, you are going to then have that experience and you're going to give an account of it. And that is you throwing up empirics on it. So that in a way, it's not like direct empirical evidence of God, but I guess it's the closest we can get because people report miracles, right?
Yeah.
But a miracle isn't a scientifically investigatable phenomenon, not really, not in the sense that it can be controlled and repeated or anything like that. But you're going to, a human being can't do anything other than use their physical body and brain and mind to have any kind of interaction with a God and to give any kind of accounting or reporting of it. So, I mean, now, like, I don't know. So am I saying that there can be empirical evidence of God? Like, in a way, yes. In a way, no, I suppose.
Okay. So I'm saying look at it from my perspective. I don't personally think that God interacts with people. I don't think I've interacted with God. But I think that you can conclude God is real still, like what I was saying earlier, by making cases of inductive cases of probability when it comes to the universe, or chancing, or rationality for humans, or even just cases that logically follow, right? Giving arguments.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You
Because
don't think that those would prove God?
nope, because you'd have to have a hypothesis, and because we don't know anything about the nature of God, we can't create God hypotheses.
Well, about nature of God is kind of personal, right? I guess the basic thing we would talk about when you're arguing for God is just like the basic necessary properties. Like a being who created the universe, he's rational because he created the universe. He's powerful because everything is here. He's logical because
Yeah,
the universe has to
but
reflect his mind.
none of that is in evidence. Those are just declarations.
Declarations that you can put into syllogisms to follow logically with what we observe in the world. If we both, like me and you both agree that logic is true, then there's arguments that, like the transcendental argument's even an example, right? Like God's a necessary precondition for some things. But like that's just I'm not saying that in specific. I'm just using an example.
but I could just invoke a separate metaphysical claim that necessarily means that God doesn't exist. The God defeating penguin. I can just say that the God defeating penguin is a necessary being, and it guarantees that God can't exist.
Okay, but this is where it's kind of this thing kind of semantically falls. Like, so the God killing penguin, like, what is this being? Did it create the universe?
No, the universe isn't created.
Oh, the universe is eternal? Okay, did it create anything?
The God defeating penguin?
Yeah.
I don't personally know. I just know that by definition it makes God not exist.
Well, that's the whole point of these arguments, is that the universe has a beginning. So if you're going off of the universe being eternal,
but the God defeating penguin, like, you can have a valid argument that doesn't make it sound. The God defeating penguin necessarily reveals or whatever that all God arguments are not sound, even if they're valid. You can make any kind of valid argument you want. All people with an extremely goofy movie PFPs are made of broccoli. You have a extremely goofy movie PFP, therefore you are made of broccoli. There is no contradiction, but it's not true.
Well, how does that follow for the argument, for the transcendental argument?
Because the God-defeating penguin renders God non-existent. So the validity of the argument doesn't matter because God
What would
doesn't.
be your argument for the God-killing penguin?
It is a necessary being. I would define it as a necessary being.
Yeah, it's defined as a necessary being.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So is there? So do you have anything else to describe about this God-killing penguin?
I don't really need to. I would just state as a brute fact that it exists.
Well, this is where it kind of, I mean, if we don't know the properties of this thing, then you can't affirm or deny whether or not it is a said thing.
I can define it to be the necessary thing. Yeah, I would say we don't know the properties of God either, though. I thought we actually agreed on this.
That would be personal properties, but in its ontology, we would describe properties that would be necessary, right? Like a part of being, like if this God-killing penguin is a necessary being, I mean, he would have to be maximally great.
Yeah, it is.
So that means he would possess all maximally great properties.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, well then that would just be
including
God.
defeating God. No, it's categorically not God. It makes God not
It
exist.
defeats God in what sense?
That's its nature.
No, in what way does it defeat God? Like physically, mentally, does it defeat the arguments for God?
It's supernatural, so we don't know how it does it. It just renders God incapable of existing.
And if the universe is eternal, how is there even a God?
There isn't. The God-defeating penguin makes God not exist.
I know, but if there's no God in the first place, how is he making it not exist?
Well, it never does exist.
So how is
it just
defeating
just
God if
can't
God never
exist?
existed?
Like the laws of geometry make it so that a square circle cannot logically exist. The God-defeating penguin makes it so it's logically impossible for God to exist by its nature.
Yeah, I know, but in geometry, we can describe to you why that is the case. You can't describe to me why this is the case with the God-killing penguin other than the fact that it's analytically true. It's a brute fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that means the example you give with the square circle is analogous because we can conceive, we can't even conceptualize a square circle. We can conceive of it, right? But we can conceptualize a God, right? Like a being.
I think
that
you
creates
can logically describe the properties of circles and squares, and you can see that those two things can't coexist. I can logically describe the properties of God and the properties of the God-defeating penguin and prove that they cannot coexist because the God-defeating penguin makes God not exist.
You haven't described any properties other than that he's necessary, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's all I need. Well, another property would be that it makes God not exist.
But to make something not exist, so it's like active potency at all. To make God not exist, he would have to exist, right?
Yeah, I probably worded that correctly. It renders God existing an impossibility.
Impossible. Okay. Well, that's better.
Yep.
Well, I guess that would be a response, but I just would see the lack of correlation when you say there's no where something could be sound but not valid. So I guess for every argument that correlates to the God-killing penguin, and like I've even seen one like the maximally great cupcake and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For like the ontological arguments for God, and then the transcendental arguments for God. But the one thing that I guess I don't agree with those responses is they kind of it's just a play on language, right? Like the meaning of these beings kind of fall under what you're trying to get them to do, which is disprove that God can even exist, even with the God-killing penguin.
Yeah, but don't you see that that's what people are doing with God? Like they literally concede that God has no properties that can even be known or understood. They just say, like, by definition or analytically, God has to exist because I just declare that the thing that can't not exist is what a God is. So therefore, I had this the guy was trolling, but it didn't really matter because all of his arguments are still, they reflect the actual problem that I see in this kind of rhetoric, which what was happening was, I think this was yesterday, he said, I don't remember when it was exactly, but he said I said, what? I don't remember exactly, but I said, well, I could demonstrate to you maybe God could exist, but the Christian God can't exist because he's a contradiction, and I can demonstrate to you why that would be. And then he said something like, that wouldn't prove that God doesn't exist. And then I said, I think maybe I asked him, is your belief falsifiable? And he said no. I was like, well, okay, now we have a really huge problem. And it got to this point where I said, so you're telling me that if from now until the end of time, every single concept we ever developed to describe God ended up producing a contradiction, then you would still simply claim that God exists? And he said yes. I was like, okay, well, now you're just saying that there has to be a thing that exists, and that thing is called God. And all of these arguments don't really mean anything if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying. And that's the example I gave earlier with the response for the ontological arguments for God. It's just like, oh, there's just this maximally great cupcake, and it's maximally tasty, and it's necessary, and it created the universe, right?
Yeah.
But and I see honestly how that responds, but then like even with the rhetoric of it being a cupcake and it being tasty and stuff like that, if you really pry into it, it would just fit the definition of a god, right? This god would just be formally known as a cupcake. But if it created the universe, it's a necessary being. It's maximally great, so it possesses the maximal attributes logically possible, right? Then this truly is, and you can like kind of understand it as dishonesty, but I mean, that kind of truly is what every understanding of God has been throughout history. And even when you try to conceptualize a God, that's kind of what the understanding is: a being.
Are you saying that? Are you saying that anybody that tries to make the ontological argument for the perfect cupcake is actually just making the argument for God's existence?
Well,
because if a cupcake had those properties, it would just be God.
Yeah, but then I would that's what I'm saying. It kind of falls analytically with these responses. I mean, you would pry into, what do you mean by a cupcake? And if they tell me it's like it's physical substance, it's a cupcake, well, then I would contradict it being aspatial and creating a universe. So they would have to tell me it's just formally a cupcake.
A Christian can't make that argument, but sure.
Well, even
a Christian can't use that rebuttal, because if you can believe that God can manifest as flesh, then I can believe that God can manifest as a cupcake or Darth Dawkins' divorce papers, or butthole worms, or whatever.
Yeah, but the ontological argument for God is talking about God's ontology. So we're talking about like his essence. So not even Christians believe that God's essence is material, right? Like he incarnated like with a nature, but they don't hold his essence being material. And then even I'm pretty sure in Hinduism and Buddhism that these gods can materialize themselves, but it's not their actual being or spirit, right?
Buddhists don't believe in God, but
I think it was Hinduism. It's like many different gods that can manifest. Buddhists believe in.
They believe in many gods. I don't know what they specifically believe. So.
Yeah, but so I guess that would be my response to it. Is what do you mean by a cupcake or paint? Like, what do you mean by cupcake? What do you mean by this and that, right? And if all they mean, and eventually it's going to boil down to, okay, it's just formally known as this. It's like formally called this. Right, but in actuality, its ontology is just this maximally great essence being that's rational and created the universe. And it's like at that point, like you can say it's funny or whatever, like it's rhetoric that it's a cupcake, but it genuinely it's just a God. You're proving the argument that God would be anything that could fit that criteria would be a God. And I understand how that doesn't prove the specific epistemologies of like Christianity and stuff, because then there would be a million different gods that fit that, right?
Yep.
But I guess that's not what the argument is intended on. And I think there's further arguments to make it so that it has to be Christianity or it has to be Islam that this maximally great being must be, right? But in the case of someone just trying to prove the ontology of God, I'm pretty sure it's called a deist. So someone who just believes in a creator, right? The ontological argument, it's kind of, I mean, obviously, if you agree with all the premises that follow to it, the response to the cupcake doesn't defeat it. It doesn't really do anything to it, right? But with the transcendental argument, I mean, I really don't even see how that follows, because I don't see how anyone holds to at least like, are you atheist, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, but what about the transcendental? You said I don't see how it follows. You don't see how the transcendental argument follows, or what?
Well, I don't see how it follows in the works of using it against someone like an atheist. Like, do you believe in like objective morals?
No.
Well, like obviously, then like how could they give the argument of like objective morals exist? God's the necessary precondition for objective morals. It's like obviously they're not going to agree that like, objective morals exist. Like, do you believe that logic exists objectively or something, or do you think anything
No.
exists objectively? Exactly. So,
Oh, well, well, no. For you asked me about logic, and then you
oh yeah, my bad.
said a
My
second
bad.
thing, and I was saying no to. Do I think anything exists? So yeah, I mean, I think fundamental particles exist.
I mean objectively.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you mean by objectively. So people who I think they're called nominalist, and there's also like mereological nihilism. These are, from what I understand, schools of thought that say things like collections of matter are just given names by convention and they aren't real. So a chair doesn't really exist. And then there are different degrees to which you take that to. So you can maybe believe that, well, fundamental particles are literally irreducible, so they objectively exist. The name we give them happens to be subjective, but they objectively exist. Some other physicists say, actually, we can reduce those fundamental particles to just the wave function, and that's the only thing that really exists. So I don't know what you would call that, but there are people that think that. Now, if by objective you mean is like mind independent, then the planet Earth objectively exists, even if you hold to a nominalism, for example.
Well, what about mathematics? Would mathematics objectively, even a nominal? I mean, in your worldview, mathematics isn't objective.
Well, it doesn't objectively exist. I don't think integers are real things. And this transcendental argument, I think, falls apart when you try to describe how it is that this eternal mind grounds things. You just run into very obvious contradictions. I don't know if they're contradictions necessarily, but I can talk to you about them.
Yeah, sure. And then after that, I would like to talk to you with what I originally was going to come up here with, which is why I believe God is real, which I'm going to tell you. But yeah.
Sure. So take the claim 2 + 2 = 4. Is that true? Yes. Will it ever be false? No. Therefore, it's an eternal truth. Now, how is it that humans come to know true propositions? Through their mind. If there are eternal truths, there must be an eternal mind. That is essentially how I understand this type of argument to go. The problem with that is, and I had a big discussion about this on YouTube, where I got a lot of feedback on it. So 2 + 2 = 4 is literally only true in a certain base system. If you change your base system to something else, then 2 + 2 can equal 11, or I think it can equal 100 in some cases. And there were people that were telling me that that's not true, and so I spoke about how I got that wrong, but then some other people who wrote hundreds of words in YouTube comments describing this. Most of it went over my head, but what they're effectively saying is, look, 2 + 2, even if you change your base system, 2 + 2 = 4 remains true numerically. Or in other words, if you have two objects and you combine them with two other objects, you have 4 objects. But then that means that it's not an abstract eternal truth. It's grounded in, like, when you say it's numerically true, that's you're describing like matter in the universe to me when you're doing that. So that's a little bit different. But anyways, let's take this idea of 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, let's pretend that nothing in the universe doesn't even exist, but God and God's mind exists. And God's mind has the thought 2 + 2 = 5. Is that statement true, false, or meaningless?
God's mind has it depends on how you really view God. Like if he has propositional knowledge, if he I guess in some vague sense it's true, it's a conditional truth to him that 5 + 5 = 10 in the back of his mind for all of eternity.
I don't know what you mean by that, a conditional truth. I don't know what you mean. If God's the one that grounds truth claims, it sounds like they can't be conditional. It sounds like they're true If God declares it, then it is true. But
Well,
tell me what
there's
you
two
mean.
things. Well, yeah, there's two things to that. Well, one, I think that God's knowledge on something would be distinct from that thing. If he thinks about us, I think that's distinct from us actually. Like
Yeah.
his thoughts of us, it's not actually us. Two, I think that God can know something that changes. That doesn't mean his knowledge is changing. It's what he has knowledge on is changing. Like I can know about a chia toy, a chia, like that thing grows in the water, right? So God knows about a chia and chias grow. That doesn't mean like his knowledge is changing. It's just like that thing in its nature grows. So I think like you said, if you change the basis of something, unless you're talking about numerically, 5 plus 5 isn't always going to equal 10. It's depending on like if we're talking about materialistic things, what you're adding. If you're counting, it depends on what counting method you're deploying. But I guess like you were talking about numerically, 5 plus 5 equaling 10, then yeah, he would know that
Well,
for all of eternity.
I don't think you're using my hypothetical appropriately, because I said nothing in the universe doesn't even exist. The only thing that exists is God's mind. So there are no things that God can numerically equate the value of 2 toward. So it's literally just a universe. There is no universe. The only thing that exists is God's mind, and God says 2 plus 2 equals 5. So tell me, true, false, or meaningless?
Well, I still think that would be true. Like using the law of thought, like anything we think about would have to exist at least conceptually. So I think it would. I think you can numerically round concepts and stuff.
I think that it's meaningless. I think that it's utterly meaningless, because if you take the stance that it's true, then that doesn't. Then God, but God could have had the thought 2 plus 2 equals 4, and so now all of a sudden the rules of mathematics are arbitrary. And so, like, the idea that 2 plus 2 is eternally true is literally false, because God could simply claim that 2 plus 2 equals 5, and then that would be true. I think that it's meaningless, but even if you say that it's true, I think it obliterates this, at least to me, this idea of that 2 plus 2 equals 4 is an objective, eternal truth.
Well, what about people who are? What about? I think it. Yeah. What about Christians? That doesn't work for them because they believe in purus actus. There's no like God. There's no potential in God.
How would that be a remedy for this?
Because God doesn't. That means God. He couldn't have potentially made 2 plus 2 equal 5 because God is pure act. So there's no potential in God.
Well, then he's not omnipotent.
Well, he'd still be omnipotent. This is what they've held to forever, or a certain. I mean, there's so many denominations and sects, but
I mean, the amateur here, me, is hearing that and saying, "Oh, so God is constrained by logic. God can't say that 2 plus 2 equals 5, which he's either not omnipotent or the laws of logic don't derive from him."
Well, it's like this, right? What do you mean by he can't do it? Like, so the same thing, the same way, like, would you say that God's not all powerful because he can't do bad things in Christianity? Because he can't do acts of evil?
So I'm okay with the idea that, because, like, I don't look for gotchas, because I think that that's just too lazy. But I do look for a contradiction isn't a gotcha. So, I look for those. I have always said I'm okay with the idea that God cannot do something that's logically impossible, like create a square circle. But then it's like, well, and that you can still be omnipotent if that's the case.
Yeah,
but true. Then God is constrained by logic, not the creator of it.
Well, it wouldn't be constraints. So look at it from this point of view, and I'm not going to say that this is everyone's point of view, but this is the one that I've got responses for with the POE, the problem of evil, which is like, why doesn't he just erase evil and bad stuff, right? And these are a lot of the responses that I get most of the time that make the most sense to me personally. Like, logic would be a reflection of God's mind, right? And being all powerful, as you said, you can do anything that's logically permissible or possible. But the same way that you don't say God is bound by something when he can't do bad things, it doesn't mean that he's bound by this thing because he can't do it. It's outside of the parameters of how he acts, of his nature. Like, what makes God who he is, the personhood of God, right? And let's just say we had like a rational chipmunk and we gave him omnipotence, right? But let's just say it
Damn.
was in this chipmunk's nature, right, to never smile. It's just outside of his nature. In fact, a property of his nature is frowning. So logically, even though he's all powerful, he's not gonna smile. But we wouldn't say this means that he's not all powerful. It's just outside of what makes him who he is as a chipmunk, right?
I mean, I don't like the example because a chipmunk could smile because it's not a logical contradiction or like impossible for a chipmunk to smile, but it is impossible for a circle to be square, for a triangle to...
With the property of it that I applied, that he's always frowning, the property of him constantly frowning.
Yeah, in a way, I don't know. Maybe this is just going over my head, but I wanted to go back to the eternal truths thing because I have more than just 2 + 2 = 4. So let's say, do you think that the statement "blue is red" is false? Because I do.
More like blue. I mean, if you're not playing on language, then yeah, blue is red is false. Yeah, it goes against the law of identity.
Sure, perfect. That's a good way of putting it. I like that. Now, let's say, or we could even do this abstractly and say 1 is 2 or 1 equals 2. We could do that too. Now, again, pretend that literally nothing exists except God's mind, and God says 1 equals 2. I don't think that statement is true or false. I think that it's just literally completely meaningless. Or if it is true, then because to me, maybe I have to describe where I'm coming from for this to make sense to me. Like with logic, I said I don't think logic is real or eternal or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just descriptive of nature. And if there wasn't anything, then any kind of mind could make any kind of claim, and there would be no standing on which any claim could be said to be true or false. So they're either meaningless, or if you say they're true, then the concept of eternal truth blows up. Because if nothing exists except God's mind, God can say red is blue. And that, again, for me, I think that that's just completely meaningless. Because we don't have, because now it just becomes like an analytic truth. Red is blue. If nothing exists, then that's fine to say. But I still think it's
things
just...
do exist, though. Like, if you're saying like it's only God's mind, like reality has existed eternally with God because God's always been real, right? If God, let's just say hypothetically God's real. So like it wouldn't just be his mind, right? It would be like his energies that are distinct from one another, his attributes. In the example of Christianity, it would be the Trinity. It would be 3 distinct persons. So even for all of eternity, there would still be things in reality that they could reflect upon. It would be themselves, right? Or for God, he could reflect on himself, his attributes.
Well, it's my fault because I rambled, but let me go back. So you say that red is not blue, breaks the law of identity. But if God's mind is the only thing that exists, do you now claim that red is blue can be true?
Well, what do you mean by God's mind is the only thing that exists? Like, does the rest of God exist? Like the rest of his attributes, his energy?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine with me. God is the only thing that exists, and God has that thought or whatever.
The only thing in reality is God. He hasn't created anything. There's no creation yet. I still think those things are true.
Okay, so then you violated the law of identity, and logic is not eternally true.
How does that violate the law of identity? That red...
Because you're saying red is blue is both true and false.
Oh, I didn't... No. Red... So wait, so you were asking red is not blue?
No, I said is blue.
Oh, red is... Yeah. How does that violate the law of identity when I say that that's true? Red is not blue.
Because then I said pretend God is the only thing that exists, and God says red is blue. So is it true if God says that? I guess... I don't know if I said it wrong or if you misheard me, but you thought I said is not.
I misheard you. I thought you said it's not, but I don't think that it's logically possible for God to say something that's not true, and I think that that's not true.
Okay, but why is but yeah, this is the problem. And
Mhm.
you're appealing to the way I think about logic and language claims. Red is blue only means anything because there's a material world in front of us that we describe. If if God is the only thing that exists and God says red is blue, then what you said can't be the case because there's no referent. You know, there's
Well, I think
there's
there would be a
sense and
reference.
reference or whatever, the whole language philosophy thing, how that goes. I don't remember exactly.
But there would be a referent for God. It just wouldn't be material. It would be like I said before, the law of thought. Like anything you think about would have to exist conceptually. So even red and blue, when we look at them, we still have to identify them conceptually. So God would have these red and blue concepts, and He could know the properties of them are not each other, and it just wouldn't be a reflection materially or a reflection concretely. Maybe the red and blue don't exist concretely, but they exist conceptually.
So is it your claim that God, if God was the only thing that existed and God said red is blue, that it would be false?
Yeah, I don't think that can happen, but hypothetically, yeah, that would just be false. It would be an example of whatever this being you're describing as being it's false.
But there's
'Cause
no such thing as red or blue. So you can just
well, this is what I'm saying.
analytically claim that that statement is
There's no such thing
true.
as red and
It would be
there's no
like
such
one and uno are the same thing. I'm not violating the law of identity by saying one is uno. And if nothing else exists except God, God can say red is blue, and that's analytically true. And now we're violating the law of identity.
But so like right here, it's contingent upon what you mean by like nothing exists concretely, but there's still these concepts for him to even be taught. Like I asked you earlier, if you say blue, you are truly like you're not playing on words or semantics. You're truly describing blue, like property X Y Z, and then red is property X Y Z, right? If they don't contradict each other, they're not illogical. Then God can say it. So like I don't really understand what you're asking me when you say can God say red is blue? Like if he's referencing our red that we understand it truly and our blue that we understand it truly, then no, he can't say that because as a concept, even if they didn't exist physically, when God's conceiving of these things, if they're opposing in properties, it would be a contradiction. So in God's logical, it displays his mind. So it would just it can't happen.
So God can't think that
Because
red
it
is
would be
blue?
it would be illogical. The way it depends on what you. So if
I
the
just
truest,
don't get why God can't do that if nothing else exists. Because
I
God
just
could create
described it
any possible kind of reality, and red and blue are just
logically, though, right?
labels we attach to something that's real. So God can abstractly claim red is blue before God creates the universe, and then that statement is
Hold
just
on,
true.
but this is what I mean. So what does he mean by blue when God says red is blue? What does he mean by blue?
Whatever he wants, that's the problem.
But this is what I'm saying. It depends on what he means. So if you agree that God can only do things logically possible, right?
Sure.
So that means depending upon what he means by blue, he can't say red is blue if it's illogical. If red and blue both contradict each other in the meaning when he says it, then he can't say that.
But
If they don't contradict each other, then sure he can say it.
but I don't know what in the world you're saying the contradiction is if God's the only one that exists or the only thing that exists.
Well, that's what I'm saying. When you conceive of something, right? When you think about something like if God were to, they would have to exist conceptually. So when he conceives of red and blue, they would have an abstract existence as concepts for him to even reference them, right? So when he creates these two concepts of red and blue and he speaks them into existence, says red is blue, right? What are the properties of red and what are the properties of blue? If they don't contradict each other, they're not on the contrary, then he can say it. If they do, then he can't say it. It wouldn't be true. It simply would be false because they contradict each other. They're illogical. And if God is purely logical, then he can't do something illogical like you agreed with earlier.
Yeah, but red is blue is only a contradiction because we know what red is and we know what blue is.
No. Well, that's what I mean. So red and blue. That's what I was asking you earlier. When you're asking questions like, "Can this be this?" Right? If you mean in its true, like truest state, in its entirety, can the entirety of blue, as we understand it, the properties that makes blue blue, like let's just say, yeah, like you agree that blue and red are both a universal, right? They're a predicate to other particulars. So we have a universal of red and a universal of blue. These two things are not each other. So it would be false to say that they are each other. And that's what makes them not each other is the properties of them. The property of red, such as redness, that allows it to be a predicate to particulars. The property of blue, such as blueness, that allows it to be a predicate to particulars. Because these two things are opposing, you can't say they're each other. That's why they're a contradiction to us. But let's, in this hypothetical world where God is the only thing in concrete reality, and there's nothing to reflect upon reality, and he just conceives of red and blue as we formally know it, it depends on what he means by red and blue. Like, what is this red and blue? If the properties, like what makes them what they are, don't contradict each other like a square circle do, then he can say it because they don't contradict each other. It's not a contradiction. It's not illogical. God can do things that are logical. If they contradict each other, like properties that make up red and blue, such as our red and blue does, or such as a square circle does, then no, he can't say it. I kind of like, that's just my understanding of it.
We've probably exhausted my bandwidth on this, so I don't think there's anything new I can say. I just, sort of in closing, I guess, I just don't see how you can make any claim that a proposition is true or false unless there's some sort of referent for it. And even with math, which is, I think math is an abstract invention, you can still, like numerically, you can demonstrate the value of integers, like with things in the world. But even if we imagine completely, I don't know, Platonistically, mathematics or whatever, then God is allowed to think 2 + 2 = 5 and 2 + 2 = 4. Either one of those could be true. He could assign a true value to either of those. And then the idea of eternal truth just kind of blows up to me. I don't know. You're just going to say stuff you've already said, and I'm going to say stuff I've already said. So I don't know what else we can do.
Real quick, though, I just want to add one more thing. I haven't said this yet. And I truly want to know what your understanding of this. So when you said that you can't say something is true or like a proposition is true unless there's a reference for it. Now, when I was asking earlier, I don't know if like it kind of slipped by your head, but like when you say reference, does it have to be physical, like concrete? Like I was going to ask you, like, do you think Spider-Man exists in the real world, like concretely?
Well, it would depend on, do I think that ideas are nouns? I mean, by definition, that's what a noun can be. I think the concept exists, but it only exists in our minds.
In our minds. Okay. So can we make a truth proposition about Spider-Man then? We can, right? We can say Spider-Man sometimes wears a red and blue outfit, or that's like his main outfit, right? That's true.
Yeah.
But there's no physical reference. There's no concrete reference. It's only a concept, right? And that's what I was talking about with God. Even though there's nothing in reality physically, he can make a conceptual reference to this concept of red and blue.
Well, I don't think you could say that Spider-Man, like even though he's a concept, you couldn't say Spider-Man both does and does not live in New York City.
Well, no, wait, what? No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's a contradiction. I'm talking about making truth propositions without a reference. I'm saying you can make a truth proposition with a reference.
Yeah, but Spider-Man doesn't really exist. But I can claim, I can make a claim about Spider-Man that is false, even though he doesn't really exist.
And you can also make a claim that's true, right?
Yeah.
So that means God, even when there's nothing in reality, he can say things that are true because they exist as a concept, like Spider-Man exists as a concept for us, like red and blue would exist as a concept for him. So he can say something that's false.
But we're referring to things in the world that we experience and know about when we make our even our completely even our idea of Spider-Man that he doesn't exist in the universe, he just exists in our minds. We're making reference to what we do know about the universe. Because, like, I don't know, I could just say, the only other alternative to this would be, okay, how about I say, is that, I just had that thought, is that statement true?
Well, so for me to,
because there's no such thing as those two things to reference, but you can't say that it's false or anything like that. I can, if a mind can just create a proposition and then just analytically invent words to mean whatever they want, then you can't tell me that statement is false. It can be true by definition. And then that's the problem if nothing exists, because I didn't reference anything. I just made noises. And if nothing exists, then God can say one is two. And then to me, that's just a problem. So you can respond to that however you want. I won't say anything in return.
Okay.
But
Well, I would say that things do exist in reality, even if it's just God. God would exist, right? There would be it would be a countable number of his attributes and stuff. He would say his lovingness is different from his judgment, but they're both him, but they're two things, but they're not each other, right? That would be him deploying a counting mechanism, and he could say it's not true that this one thing is both these things. So I guess he could reference concepts. He could reference himself still. So I just don't see how that follows with God just existing. But if you want me to, before I get out of here, I mean, I don't know if this is usually how long you talk to people, or if this is longer. If it's longer, I apologize. But I kind of want to give you a kind of understanding argument, I guess you would say, for God's existence, which is why I believe I believe God exists personally, and it's not this ontological argument. It's genuinely grounded in empirical truths and just research and data.
okay.
All right. Well, have you ever heard of Elliott's trichotomy?
You're not talking about the fucking Elliott argument, are you?
What is the Elliott argument?
He has a whole TikTok page, and his TikTok page is called the Elliott argument, and it's that's not what you're talking about.
Does he use Elliott's trichotomy?
I don't know. Wait, yeah, I think yeah, because he says an atheist either has to believe that there's an infinite regression or the universe came from nothing, which is incoherent, or whatever. You're talking about.
That's only off of the precept that the universe has a beginning. But yeah, that would be what it is.
Man, I want to talk to the Elliott argument. He's such a gaslighty asshole, but I want to talk to him because what he says is just, it's so stupid. But anyways,
So
go ahead.
Oh, so the first one would be, are you aware of the argument then?
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is different from what this creator talks about. So just give it to me.
Okay. So to describe something that's necessary, right? So at first I'm gonna break down why I believe that the universe must have a beginning and can't be necessary. So to describe a being as necessary, it would have to be uncaused, independent, eternal, all-powerful, and intelligent or personal. That's how I'm describing a necessary being here.
Is that in evidence, or is that just by declaration?
Yeah, that's by declaration now, so you know what I'm referencing, but then the evidence would be given.
Okay, well then I mean, the problem with this is, I'm going to let you give the whole argument, but the problem with this is I could just say, no, the God defeating penguin is necessary, not a personal revelatory God.
It doesn't go down that route. I'm just kind of telling you what I mean by God, so you have an understanding. Okay. So for this, it's based off of the presupposition that this is what I personally believe, that the universe isn't necessary. The universe isn't eternal. It isn't. The universe isn't eternal, uncaused. It isn't independent. I think that the universe is made of conjunct parts. It changes. It ages. It depends on the conditioning, so whether or not certain physics apply to it. Like when things are too small in physics, what do you call that?
When things are too small in physics, what do you call that?
Yeah, when things get really small in physics, they no longer abide by the traditional laws of physics.
Oh, well, I mean, we have very sophisticated quantum mechanical models that describe things.
Yeah, like quantum physics then. That's where you get into quantum physics. So like there's different parts of the universe that act differently. The universe ages. So I mean, all of these things to me would tell me that the universe isn't unchanging. It's not eternal. It's not uncaused. It's not independent. So I would say the universe has a beginning. It has to start to grow, right?
So, okay, I want to apologize. I was monitoring my YouTube chat because some people were saying that somebody was posting like hate comments, and so I went there to find who that was and block them. So you said when things get reduced to a certain point, classical mechanics stops describing their properties, then we move to quantum. But after that, then I didn't follow, so sorry about that.
It's okay, man. But I was just saying that the reason why I don't think the universe is necessary or eternal is because It's made of parts, it changes, it ages, and it's dependent on conditions, like with the quantum physics, different things work different ways depending on how big it is, depending on where it is, right? Like
Yeah.
space-time bends on gravity and stuff like that. And the fact that, well, the biggest part is that things age in the universe, things grow. And you can't really grow unless there is a start, right? There wouldn't be no way to track growth without these kind of definitive beginnings and ends. So to me personally, I don't know if you agree with this, but I would say, using an inductive case, I think these are all reasons why I think that the universe has a beginning. I don't think the universe is eternal.
I mean,
Would you agree with that?
I have responses to that, but I want to hear the entire argument.
Okay. Well, if you were to agree with that, then this is where Elliott's trichotomy falls in. Elliott's trichotomy is this understanding that only these three things could exist as the reason for the universe, such as it's the PRS, RSE, or something like that. So it would be like either the universe came from absolute nothingness, so null of properties, two properties. The universe is infinite, or it would cause infinite regression. The universe has an infinite amount of creations that aren't necessary beings. Like the universe was caused by this, and that was caused by that. Or the third one would be a necessary being created it. And this is what Elliott's trichotomy is. So it's a brute fact explained by something or contingent, or explained by something necessary, like a necessary being.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's no problem with infinite regression, would be one thing. There's no problem with a universe being eternal either. So, infinite regressions happen all the time. People say if you have an infinite, if your whatever you believe in leads to infinite regression, then that means that logically your account can't be true. God is not an escape from an infinite regression, but also infinite regressions are absolutely not a logical problem. If they're like, you and I have been talking for about 49 minutes, right? There are an infinite number of divisions of time between the beginning and end, or between the beginning of our conversation and right now. Yet we have, this is Zeno's paradox. A finite set can contain an infinite series. We just know this. So the universe can be eternal. And what the Elliott argument idiot doesn't seem to understand is, I'm talking about the streamer, is that he keeps conflating an eternal universe and an infinite regression with an infinite span of time going backwards. That's not how that works. Anything that has a beginning, there are an infinite number of regressal causes toward its beginning, regardless of if you think God made it begin to exist or the universe, brute fact, just exists. Before the Big Bang, it existed in a timeless quantum state. It doesn't matter. So there is no dichotomy here where God rescues us from anything with respect to that.
Well, so for eternal, I give you my problem with, I don't think there's anything illogical with the universe being eternal, obviously. But I think that with our universe, I just don't think it's probable with our universe, and I give my reasoning why. So I wasn't denying an eternal universe possibility. I obviously think it's possible. But for the infinite regression, I don't really understand your perspective on infinite regression, right? Like when the example you gave just now, I think all of those would be potential. All the points where you said there's an infinite amount of points where we could have stopped, and within our finite. And I agree that there can be an infinite thing in a finite set. Like this would be set theory. Like I'm pretty sure Aleph Null counts a finite amount of infinites and stuff like that. It's like this is what set theory is, but even that is because it would be a countable infinite. So there's like a bijection between the things you're counting. But for the universe, if there was an infinite regression of this caused that and that caused that, right? It wouldn't really be a bijection between anything. So it would be the infinite. Well, the problem that most people have with infinite regression would still follow. With like, if you start here, it would leave no state of being because there's no start point. Like I would ask you the question: if there's
that's now you're invoking an infinite amount of time going backwards. You can't. An infinite past has no beginning, so there are no now moments. So like you can't you can't get to the middle of a book. You can't be on the middle page of a book that is infinite, that you began reading an infinite number of time ago or anything like that. Yeah. But that's not what I'm saying. If you have a finite amount of time, you still have to infinitely regress divisions of time. Like there are an infinite number of antecedents in that.
Mm-hmm. But those wouldn't, it wouldn't really, it's not within actuality. So it wouldn't be, it would be like a countable infinite. So that's not what infinite, that's not the problem with infinite regression. That doesn't deal with what the problem with infinite regression is. Like, if it's a countable infinite, right, and there's a bijection between these two things, and we can find correlation between these things, this, then there's no problem with it, right? Like, there's no problem with things that are infinite. But infinite regression fails when you give the example of these infinite causes. This type of infinite and specific would have to deal with, as you're relating to, but not in specific, only to time. Like all of these places have time. The universe has time. The past thing had time. This thing happened at this time, right? And if all of this time that we're talking about here has no beginning, because this is all it would be, then that would be the problem with it, right?
You're going over my head. So what I'm doing right now is just to be able to try to engage in what you're saying is I'm looking up if the universe began at the Big Bang, is that countable or uncountable infinity? And let's see. It says it depends what you mean. So of course, like literally every philosophical conversation ever goes to, well, it depends on what you mean by one of those words.
In some sense.
Yeah. If you think of discrete time steps, like 1 moment per Planck time, and you can reach each moment, thus that's a countable infinite. If you think of time as a continuous, then that's uncountably infinite. So the problem with that is it's not like the Planck unit is actually the smallest unit of time. We just don't have any laws of physics that can describe anything in a smaller time interval than that. So, the age of the universe is finite, not infinite at all. Moments in time since Big Bang, discrete, countable space. Is the universe spatially infinite? We don't know for sure. I mean, the universe, for all we can tell, is infinite spatially.
Wait, isn't it expanding?
Yeah.
So how would it be infinite?
There's no problem with something that is infinite growing. Like you appealed to Alephs earlier. There are infinities that can be contained within other infinite sets. So the idea that something that is infinity can grow, I don't see any problem with that.
Well, something with its entire, that just can't happen. That's just it's illogical. So with the example of the sets, those are different infinities in their entirety being counted numerically. But you can't say one of those infinites are growing, because infinite means with like no limit, like a traditional understanding of infinite. Like not getting into set theories, infinites, like absolute infinite, countable infinite, uncountable. Like the traditional understanding of something being infinite means it has no limit, right? With the universe, if it's growing, then the limit is changing, so there has to be a limit.
I don't know why. I don't know what you mean by limit. Because when I hear limit and it's growing, to me, when you say limit, like it has to stop growing at some point. I don't see how that would be the case.
So let
me tell you how I think about this. And maybe I'm making a category error. That's possible. But to me, the number of numbers between 1 and 2 is infinite, but smaller than the number of numbers between 1 and 3. So to me, that says to me that logically something that is infinite can grow. Now, I don't know if you're trying to tell me, yeah, but the set of numbers between 1 and 2 doesn't expand into the numbers between 1 and 3, so I don't know. So that's just how I think of it.
Well, yeah. So, infinite. When you say like that infinite would be bigger than that infinite, that's because of set theory. There's sets of them. It would be more of it. But what I mean by limit is like like for the universe, if it's expanding, because it's actually something we can gauge in capacity. Like let's just say the universe stopped expanding right now. That point that it's at right now, compare it to the point it was at 50 million years ago, right? That would mean that the universe doesn't have, it would have a limit still. The limit's just constantly changing. When you say something's growing, it's becoming bigger. It's constantly changing. The limit was this, now it's that. Like right now as we speak, let's just say the limit is changing every second. That means it has to have a limit because it's growing. It's not
So
infinite.
what I think you're conflating the observable universe with the universe. So because when you said it's expanding, if it stops expanding, the observable universe, yes, there are finite distances between here and the edge of the observable universe, and it gets bigger every single day. But that kind of implies that beyond the observable universe, there isn't just more of it. No, it can be infinite. And there's a oh, that's not what I meant. We're gonna go to Chat GPT, and you can think that this is cheap or whatever. I don't care because I'm just not smart enough for this. So I just plugged into it, and this is just to help us think. I don't know. Like you can criticize. Yeah. I'm not saying this is true. You can criticize it. I don't care.
No, it's good, yeah.
It's just that I don't know what to say. So the universe can be infinite and expanding. Infinite doesn't mean unchanging. When cosmologists say this, they don't mean it's getting more stuff or it's getting bigger. To me, that would imply that it doesn't have a limit. And what I asked it is, can something that's infinite grow? To me, I guess I didn't invoke a limit to anything, but there we go.
Yeah.
So an infinite rubber sheet, can you stretch it? Yes. That's a good way to think about the universe, I guess. So it says what's actually growing. It's not the amount of stuff or the numbers of galaxies. It's just the scale of space itself, so on and so forth. So
well,
we can take that for whatever we want.
Well,
but
this is what I mean by being so like you could say the universe is a potential infinite. Like it's a process. Like it's adding more. It's expanding. It's infinite in that sense, but it's not infinite. It's not an actual infinite, which is it's complete total has no limit. The total of something has no limit. Like if it's completely and totally infinite, right? There's an infinite amount of space that has been stretching and expanding, like an actual infinite number of objects already existing or something like that. It means the thing is already infinite in size, age, or number, etc. So it can't have more. Like an example is a hotel with infinite many rooms, all occupied.
Yeah,
right?
The Hilbert's Hotel. Yeah,
the Hilbert's Hotel. So that would be an example of an actual infinite, right? But let's just say we have the Hilbert's Hotel, right? There's no limit to the
but Hilbert's Hotel is countably infinite, isn't it? Because there's a key for every room.
That would be a countable infinite, yeah.
Yeah, but the universe isn't. If the universe is infinite,
well, we haven't went over whether or not it's countable or uncountable.
Oh no. Well, we're gonna be here all day.
Well, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but the universe, well, in the sense of it, well, we haven't talked about it expanding. In the sense of it expanding, that would be countable anyway, right? Because it's like we can track like each single one of the.
But you're conflating the observable universe with the universe itself. Yeah. The observable universe is absolutely countable, but if it goes on forever, then that's different.
Okay, I don't. So when you say observable universe, right, and a non-observable universe, what I'm saying is like when you say universe, what are you referencing? Are you referencing like the space in its entirety? Because I could say because you truly could say like with this is how it would work with set theory. You could say the universe is infinite, and like this space, it's like still expanding and growing onto another set, which is what we're in right now. It's just the observable universe that we have, right? Like in set theory, you could have one infinite and then another set that's growing. The infinite is growing into another set, so it's already reached infinite, but then it's counting more. But it wouldn't be a part. I don't know. I just don't know. The universe, if you say universe, referencing the universe in its entirety, everything that's in the universe, like the galaxy, just existence itself, then the universe can't be expanding then. Just the observable universe is expanding. Is that what you think? That only the observable universe is expanding? or maybe potentially the rest of the universe could be
Well,
expanded.
the problem with this is we don't know what the rest of the universe is doing. Like, we just can't know. For all we know, the laws of physics are different beyond the observable universe. That's what the multiverse is. It doesn't mean that there are parallel universes, just different universes. There's one universe, but many bubble universes within it that have different laws of physics. So,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I
get
mean,
what you
in
mean.
a sense, I think the universe could be infinite, but it's only our area of the universe that's growing. I guess I don't have a problem with that.
Well, I thought you were referencing like our observable, like what we live in right now, our galaxies, our stars, right? What's expanding? All of that is only the universe. I didn't know you're referencing like some like existence with other universes inside of it, like this multiverse, like things outside of what we can observe.
Well, yeah, I
But I'm
mean,
saying,
universe expands beyond. We have no reason to think the universe doesn't expand beyond the observable universe. And
no, I
if the
agree.
universe were finite, you could detect its curvature in the observable universe, and we can't. So that is the very strong inference we have to reasonably state that the universe really may go on literally forever. Like, if
Wait,
you had an infinitely
what
long
do you
laser
define
beam,
as
you couldn't hit the back of your head with it.
what do you define as universe?
Well, I mean, you could define it in different, like, in the colloquial sense, we define the universe as space, like it's the stuff out there. But I mean, you could
Yeah,
just call the
well, that's what I
universe
was
like I sometimes just say the universe is all things that exist.
exist. Okay, well then, yeah, that's where. So when you said universe earlier, you were talking about all things that exist, and the observable universe was just the space that the colloquial definition, right?
Well, I would say the observable universe is part of the universe. Like, I don't think observable universe is a dumbed down version of universe. It's just
Mhm.
part of it, you know? Like,
What would a multiverse be?
multiverse is, again, we can't see beyond the observable universe.
Yeah.
Multiverse came out because the mathematics told us that it's possible that in the initial expansion in the Big Bang, there were regions of the universe where the constants came together in different ratios than we see them here. They call them bubble universes. And so the laws of physics in different places in the universe aren't the exact same as here. So if I teleport, the observable universe has a diameter of about 46 billion light years, I think. So if I teleported you 1 trillion light years away from here, you would still be in the universe, but its laws of physics might be different.
Okay, well that's where the misconception is coming in. I'm interpreting the universe as the all observable celestial bodies, like the galaxies, the cosmos, the planets, the space, the stars, the energy, right? And if you were to leave
Sure,
our
that's a countable thing, and you could call it
universe,
infinite in the sense that nothing else exists, but that's not a
yeah.
real
Well,
infinity.
what I'm saying is I wouldn't like if when like our linguistics are kind of different. Like if we were to leave this like the cosmos, I wouldn't call that the universe. I wouldn't say we're in the universe still. We just left. I would say we left our universe. We would either have to enter a different universe or some different space, some different I don't know. I just don't word it like that. That's not usually how I would word leaving universes or something like that. And for multiverse, I interpret that as like um a plurality of universes themselves, a plurality of sets of cosmos and stuff, right?
That's
But
what
I
I
know
always thought it was too, but that's not what the idea actually is.
yeah, I understand what you mean now. There's when you say universe, it's just everything that's real, just not real, but everything in existence, everything that exists. And then when you said leave our universe, you were just referencing the space that is growing. So yeah, I agree with you then. If you say everything that's real, I think everything that's real can be infinite, and then there can be parts of it that are growing. I agree.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what you're saying is we just wasted 20 minutes of time. No, I'm
yeah.
kidding. How long have we been going? We've been going for an hour and 6 minutes. Do you want to stay on this topic? I don't care. Wait, why are we talking about
Yeah, I don't know what
because
this
it's
is
the
about.
Elliott argument. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, we started on infinite regression, and then we ended up I don't know why we
Oh,
ended up on the infinity thing from there. I don't really
I
want
think
to
we
backtrack.
were just talking about infinite regression. Well, I guess the fastest way to get back to what we're talking about is, so you said I was viewing the infinite regression as like an infinite amount of time. Like there's no beginning, you can't be in the middle. Like
Well, I wasn't accusing you of doing that right away, but then it did kind of sound like you were doing that later on. So
in the example of the universe being like just caused over and over and over and over and over again, right? Would all of those things not be gauged in time or like a tracking of events? Like let's just say our universe was caused by.
We humans don't have a way of explaining cause and effect in any other way
Than time, right?
Yeah, but there are weird quantum events that seem to not happen in a classical sense of cause and effect.
Wouldn't it be like cosmic chaos?
Well, it's the, I don't know what you call it, like the manifestation or creation, whatever, or of virtual particles seems to really, in a sense, not follow any kind of classical notion we have of cause and effect. And quantum fluctuation events like that are proposed as a potential initiator of the Big Bang. Before that, the universe existed just in a quantum state.
Isn't that like what quantum particles and stuff are as well? Or don't they like they don't exist until you observe them or something like that? Or like they change?
No, they exist, but what you can't really say is like discretely where they are exactly. You can just probabilistically know where they are, but then there's different parts of this. Like the moment you make a measurement of where the object is, you now can know nothing about its momentum, so you can't predict into the future where it's going because that measurement affects its trajectory. And then with electrons, we describe them as occupying the space within an electron cloud. Now, I don't know, like there are people that say that means the electron is everywhere in that cloud and then manifests in a specific location when you measure it. I think maybe the other interpretation is, no, it could be anywhere within there. We just can't know until we measure it, and then we can't know where within that space it'll be in the next moment.
Yeah, well, thanks for understanding. But like you said before, I guess I don't even know how to say traditional or standard, but I guess a standard way of cause and effect would always be temporal, right? Like these tracks, it would have to be time. This event happens, then this event happens. So with this, that was one of the examples on the Elliott trichotomy of the universe is just caused by something that's caused by something infinitely. With that, would that not be an infinite amount of time with no beginning, which would cause the problem with infinite regression that people have with?
No, I don't think it would be, because I'll just go back to if before the Big Bang the universe existed in a quantum state, it can exist eternally in the sense that time as we understand it doesn't flow in under those conditions. So it's past eternal. It's kind of like inside of a black hole. Like the way you can describe space-time breaks down. So we don't have a description for what it is, but time doesn't flow like we understand it in the I was going to say in the real world, but like in the typical world or whatever. So I think we can say, I don't see any logical problem with saying we have a past eternal model. The universe, there's no universe before the Big Bang. Well, I mean, we don't have a universe like ours before the Big Bang. You don't have to invoke time is circular, infinite bangs, and then compressions, bang bounce. You don't have to invoke that. You can just have a past eternal universe. And it has an infinite regression. That's not a logical problem because there's an infinite amount of, I guess we could say, slices of time between, just like there are an infinite number of slices of distances between me and the kitchen, yet I can walk to the kitchen. So I can traverse that infinite series in a finite set. So I don't think that there's an actual problem with respect to that.
Wait, say it one more time. There's an infinite amount of what between you and the kitchen?
slices, like I could slice the distance from me to the kitchen an infinite number. I could have the
You could
distance.
divide it infinitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do that with time too.
You would be like 1 second away from something, half a second from something.
Yep, half of a
1/4
half,
second from something.
half of
Yeah.
that, half. Yeah, and we know that we traverse those kinds of infinities literally all the time. I'll do it right now.
Yep, right there.
Yeah. So that's one of the problems I have with that. One of the other things is when you said the universe can't be necessary because it's composed of contingent things. Well, that's just a compositional fallacy, isn't it? I don't think you can logically prove that therefore the universe can't be that. I had oh my God, on Friday, we talked to some guy tried to make an argument like this. We talked for like an hour and 15 minutes and never got past premise 1. I wanted to move on, but the other people didn't but we spent so much time on this exact thing. I said, look, the universe can be composed of things, but that are contingent or whatever, but it itself is necessary. And they said, no, it doesn't work that way. I said, well, okay, doesn't God have attributes and characteristics and free will? And doesn't God have thoughts? And so like if God can be composed of those things, but God isn't those things, God's one nature is his ontology or whatever, then it's like, okay, well, yeah, you get to do that, but I don't get to do that. I feel like there was...
Yeah, but for the Abrahamic beliefs in Islam, especially because Allah has like 99 names and stuff like that. But I think it's in Christianity too. God isn't composite. So like when he has energies and stuff like that, they're not parts of him. They don't think God has parts and pieces and stuff. They think God is a whole, and there's true things about him. Like you would say he is truly this or true. Oh, here's the best example. Do you know about Christianity and how God, or you were just talking about earlier, God incarnated and Jesus is God and human?
Do I think that or what?
Oh no, do you know it? Like, do you know about the incarnation in Christianity? How Jesus is God and human? You were talking about it earlier.
I mean, I've heard people try to explain it. I don't think it can possibly make any sense to be fully God and fully human.
Oh yeah, well that's the problem right there. That's the point. So you wouldn't say that God is 100% man, 100% God. You wouldn't say he's fully God because that entails like a threshold, right? It entails composition. You would say these things are true of him. He's truly God because he possesses the divine nature. He's truly human because he possesses the human nature. With Allah, you would say Allah is truly merciful because he exercises mercy. You would say he's truly powerful because he exercises power. You wouldn't say a part of him is powerful, a part of him is this. You wouldn't say he's 100% powerful, 100% that. Because they don't believe God is made of parts or composition. Or at least, like the churches and stuff. Non-heretical. Like the people who hold to this kind of dogma and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if this is ultimately the point that they would have to make on this, but if they say God isn't any of those particulars, but then what I feel like happens, and this is another thing that I tried to talk about with the guest, it just got derailed so many times. Because then if God is just, how would you even say it? Like there's this, it's kind of like an ontological thing about God. God just is
his being. What do you mean?
Yeah, but then what I think is happening, and I can't remember how to word it, but I think you run into a problem when you do that, because I asked the guy, wait, is existence a predicate? And he said no. I was like, okay, but if you're just gonna say, if you make all these philosophical rationales for God that literally just ground in him being a singular existing entity, then you are saying that God's existence is the only predicate. And so I feel like that's a kind of a serious problem. Yet, like, you can't hold both those beliefs. You have to abandon one of them at least.
Specific.
That again, it's going to be hard for me to be specific on this because I've read one philosophy book in my whole life. But they say that God is, like they work around all these things like, oh, how can he be fully God and fully, well, because he's not those attributes. God just is an entity who like can be reduced to God just is whatever.
Oh,
I don't know how
well,
to
here,
say this
I got
properly.
it. So
But then you say that his existence is his only predicate. If his identity just boils down to he just is the thing where his essence and his nature are the same thing, and I have like literally notes from it from the other day here. So,
well, from I don't know. Have you talked to a lot of like Christian debaters who are really like? I mean, they're kind of really educated in what they believe, at least in specific. They can really explain things because they've it's certainly happened for me in ways in which the original responses from Christians didn't make sense, but then with a kind of leveled education on what their actual belief is, it it doesn't follow through. It probably wouldn't follow through in a sense that you're thinking I'm saying it does, but it follows through in the sense of that you'd be like, okay, I see how you guys are saying that, but you don't also believe this. So I guess the way to say it is like the person, because of the Trinity, obviously. So like the entity of God would be like the being, right? Like his essence, his essential set of qualities. That thing just exists. But the person of Christ doesn't, like, he's not his attributes, is what they mean. It's not like he just is, but the subject, let's say like subject X and his attributes. Like he's not his attributes, therefore he can possess opposing attributes. Like without them really being composition. So like he can have a nature with X, Y, Z, and have a nature with the opposite of X, Y, and Z. And because he's not both of these things and he just possesses them, I think that's what they're trying to say. Like the subject of Jesus himself, the person.
yeah, that's fine. And to me, I don't know. I have this intuition that it's just going to run into that problem. Because if you can point out that, you know, if God we can be fully man and fully human. Well, because that's not what God's nature or whatever is. Then God's actual essence, the one singular thing about God boils down to his divine essence or nature, which is just his existence.
His essential set of qualities.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was, I guess, making a slightly different version of the argument, but he really just kept saying, and I wish I could remember how to phrase it properly, but he was just kind of saying, look, all these extra things don't result in a problem because God's singular essence is his nature, and to me, that just you're just telling me that God exists. His existence is his essential quality, but existence isn't a predicate. So I don't understand how you can hold both those things at the same time.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I'm pretty sure essence is the whatness, like the existence itself, and then the nature is like the two exist. That's what it's the two exist of the essence. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, like I said, there's so many different positions. I don't know exactly what type of. I don't really know, but what was it supposed to be about again? Oh yeah, talking about parts of the universe and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was saying it's a compositional fallacy.
Yeah. Well, earlier I think that's what our misconception was as well when I was saying the universe grows and ages and stuff like that, is I wasn't referencing the universe as things outside of it or potential things outside of it that we can observe. I was only referencing the observable universe, like stars and stuff. Like from what we see, at least, it grows. And so what I'm saying is like the observable universe has a beginning. Like you agree, like at least like because it's expanding and stuff like that. Because things.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think that would be a fair way to. I think I just made my eyes super red. I don't think that would be a fair way to declare, well, therefore you can't claim that the universe is necessary. Because by that same logic, because you're admitting that the universe goes beyond our observable universe, because by that same logic, I would say, well, look, Jesus came into being on a day and then fucking died like a beta on a certain day. Therefore, God isn't eternal. So.
Well, I mean, that, I don't know. I guess the difference with that is like, when you say Jesus did this, it's like you're referencing different things. Like Jesus did this, you're referencing the person qua his humanity. And then you say God isn't eternal, you're referencing God, his being, you're referencing his essence, which never actually incarnated. His essence never became human. His essence never did any of that. But the biggest difference with that, with the universe, is I wasn't actually agreeing. I don't know. I'm not like affirming. I'm just not too educated in it yet. Like things outside of the universe, and properly, at least as much as I should be with physics. So I'm not like affirming that there is. I don't know. I'm just agnostic to whether or not there's things outside the universe. All I was saying was that when people are referencing the universe at the beginning, I think they're talking about the observable universe because of the understanding of the Big Bang, the understanding of things growing, which was my contingency earlier. If things are growing in age and dying and stuff like that, then this whatever this part at least that we live in, that you define as the universe, is part of the universe. At least would have to have a beginning.
Sure.
So it would be like, and that would be analogous. That would be analogous with God. So that aspect of God, the human nature, that aspect of God would have to have a beginning, which is the incarnation. But the entirety of God wouldn't have a beginning. So I think
here's what I think we should do, or I should do. I think I should probably get the next guest up because I feel like I probably have run out of juice here. I want to tell you something, and I just want you to try to quickly tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
Because the way you're describing God here, like saying Jesus had limits, but he's not God because it's not God's essence or whatever. To me, a lot of this, and I had this conversation once when I was trying to talk to somebody about, I was debating with them, the Trinity like literally makes no sense. If Jesus is God and God is the Father, then Jesus is his own Father, like all these things you hear people say or whatever. And then God, he kept saying that God is a nature, and this sort of thing. And so that what ended up happening was I said to the guy, I was like, wait a minute, the way you're describing God is an adjective. Is that the case? And he said, yeah. And like the way you're describing it kind of sounds that way too. And then I said, okay, well, I have now just created the grammatical argument against God's existence, because now when you say things like God did blank, an adjective can't carry a verb. So God has just been grammatically and logically rendered to be literally incoherent. So
well, here, real fast, I want to go over this with you, which is your understanding of the Trinity. Well,
it's what he admitted to, and I'm not claiming that is how.
No,
it works.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about originally when you at first give the critique of if Jesus is God and the Father is God, and that means that Jesus is his own Father.
Yeah, he was talking to himself in the desert, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, like for those, it's like when the Trinity is like three distinct persons, so three different subjects, and when we say that they're all God, where the only thing that they're sharing would be the essential set of qualities, so like the divine mind, the divine nature, the divine essence, but they don't share things like their property and relations. So like the Father begets and the Son is begotten. So the Son wouldn't be his own Father. The Son doesn't beget. That's not a property of relations in his subject.
Yeah.
So the persons would have different properties in relation to each other, which is why you wouldn't say that's like the clears up the mishap with that problem. Other than that,
the problem with him is that he said God is an adjective. I mean, if you say God is the singular divine essence, is that a noun? I mean, you have an adjective, essential, or it could be an adverb. And then you have the essence. So is the essence a noun?
Well, this is the problem with that. When you say God, you're kind of already referencing his essence. So you're just saying God's essence is an essence. But he also could reference one of the persons when he says, like, you could say God referencing Allah, right? Or referencing Jesus or referencing the Father, but all be correlating. It's like, I don't know what he meant by God is the essence. Was he talking about one of the persons, or I'm not exactly sure.
No, because he was talking about forget Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit, because if there's one God, what is that? What is it? And then he just said it's. He described it to me. I was like, sounds like you're saying God is an adjective, and he said yes.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. So
right.
If you're not talking about any persons and you just say God, the only thing you could be referencing is his essence, because that's the being, that's the whatness of God. It's his
So essence. Is that a noun?
Saying is what a noun? Saying God
The
means
essence. You said if you're not talking about the Holy Spirit or Jesus or the Father in particular, then when you say God, if
You have to talk about
monotheism
the
is true, then what is that thing? It's God's essence. Is that a noun?
Is what a noun? God is God's essence a noun? I don't know exactly what you're asking.
Whatever it is, that is the one thing that allows us to say that monotheism is true. There has to be this one thing that God is, whatever it is. I don't care. Call it whatever you want. Is it an adjective or a noun?
I guess it would be a noun.
Okay.
I guess because it's
If
the
you say
essence.
that, then fine. Then you can say things like God created the heavens and the earth. But if you
Well,
say
if
it's an
I know what you're
adjective,
saying,
then you
yeah.
can't. That just
Well, I would say it's a noun because like a noun would be used for like different classes of people and stuff, right? So it's like I guess essence, like your essence is the what you are. That would be a different class of whatness, right? Like even a rock has essence. Me and you both have essence, but they're different from a different being's essence. So I guess yeah, it would have to be a noun. But I understand what you're saying with the adjective, and I'm not saying that doesn't work. I'm not trying to like argue against that. As I told you before, like it depends on their position, like the person you were talking to. So I mean, I see what you're saying though, and I think that is kind of neat with the adjective thing. I mean, you could try to talk to many people. I mean, I don't know how much it would work. I mean, it was working on that guy clearly. So
yeah, that kid's a dipshit. I haven't talked to him since then because he lied so badly. It was utterly hilarious.
yeah.
Anyways,
Well, I'm sorry for holding up so much time, man. You can get on to the next guest. I'm probably
I
gonna
mean,
head
I
out.
wouldn't have done it if I wasn't enjoying it. So don't worry.
Okay. I don't know what to say. Thank you, I guess. I mean, no, what else? Thank you. You're welcome.
No, that's what I was gonna say. You're welcome. All right, later. Oh shit, I forgot that it does the 2.5 hours. I usually only do like 90 minutes. You guys it's everybody's birthday today.
Hello.
Hi, what's up?
Hey man, first of all, I'm a huge fan. I love your book, Facts That Aren't True. But
thank you.
So I just was curious. For a lot of on TikTok, there's a lot of tag arguments and presuppositional arguments, and I was just curious. What do you think is the major like issues with those arguments? Like, what's the downfall, do you think, to those?
The intellectual dishonesty. They say that their presuppositions are what they know, and that's not what a presupposition is. It's a starting point that you use to start making claims. You can say that Spanky has literally all the exact same properties as Yahweh, because a presuppositionalist will not commit to the idea that a God other than the Christian God can possibly exist. They won't do that. So then you can just say, Spanky has all the properties that their God does, but it was personally revealed to you through the divine power of the zip zop that the Christian God is false. And there's fuck all they can do about it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and just one more question, because I debate on here, but flat earthers, who I think a major issue they have is they just deny facts that you give them. So do you have any ways, whenever you debate flat earthers, that is kind of more visual for them, and so they can't just say the facts that you're showing them aren't true?
Yeah, I pretty much always make them prove that the earth can't be flat according to the contradictions of their own observations. So I mean, there are well, it's not the only thing I do, because I do get them to concede ahead of time. If the earth were a spinning ball, it doesn't even have to be a spinning ball. You could prove geocentrism too, and the earth being a globe. Then what would the evidence look like? And then you can demonstrate how a sunset is exactly what it would look like. The celestial poles rotating in opposite directions is exactly what that would look like. The moon, the face of the moon being the same for all observers, is exactly what it would look like. So those are the two things that I do.
Okay, well, thank you, man. Once again, I'm a huge fan, so it's great to be able to talk to you, man.
Oh, no problem.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
I'm pretty sure Emir is a friendly. I'm pretty sure I've talked to Emir before. Hello?
Yeah, we talked before. Uh, I love your show. Have you ever thought about doing like talk about the Mandela effect? I don't believe in it because it's just people are just that bad at misremembering things. But I
Well,
have people all the time freaking out about it. But I'm like, it's it's not the big deal that a brand changed its name. It is a cool thing though because you think one thing but it's actually another thing.
yeah, I mean, well, I wouldn't say that the Mandela effect is something that happens. Like, what would be like if somehow there was some sort of toxin that leaked into the water system and it was like a hallucinogenic toxin or something. I don't know. I'm trying to imagine something crazy. Then you could imagine that like, yeah, 10% of the population would have this similar psychological, I don't think that's a word, psychological phenomena. And that would be because of this thing that happened. The Mandela effect, it's just a description of an overlapping phenomena that can happen to anybody. It just happens to happen to huge numbers of people.
Yeah.
Like, and it's called that because people were like, wait, Nelson Mandela died in the 90s. I saw his funeral on TV. It's like, no,
Right.
you didn't.
Yeah,
that
I
never
know the
happened.
story.
And the Bernstein Bears, no, it's the Bernstein Bears, you know?
Right.
And what's the one with cereal? I always forget.
The Fruit Loops one.
Fruit Loops, yeah. Looney Tunes, it's
right.
It's I don't remember if it's TUNES or TOONS.
I see. I don't.
Which one
So
is it?
my theory is right. My working theory on this is that it's like when you say, "I know what you're thinking about. You're thinking about pink elephants," and because I mentioned pink elephants, you kind of are thinking about the pink elephants a bit. So when somebody mentions something about something obscure, like right now we mentioned the Looney Tunes. I don't remember if it's Tunes or Tunes, right?
Yeah.
So if I listen to the person saying, "Oh, it used to be this, but it's actually this," I might doubt myself and think, "Oh yeah, wow, that's a cool." Like I kind of trick myself into thinking, right, that happened because I'm misremembering the event because it's so easy to confuse tunes with tunes because they're basically worded the same. And if
Right.
somebody mentions it to you, because it's always like a small detail. Except with Mandela, because the Mandela effect was more of I looked it up. It was a paranormal researcher who put up that story. So it's not that she saw people talking about Mandela dying in the 90s. She just wrote about it. So
Okay. I don't know anything about that, but
right, that part, right. So that's my theory on it. There are always small details too, like the peanut, like the not the peanut, like the Monopoly guy having a monocle.
yeah, a monocle on,
He
yeah.
doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always tiny The one that got me because
Yeah.
there's always one that gets you. The one that got me was in Scary Movie. There's this joke where I swore that the guy says, "I see white people in the movie theater," but he says, "I see dead people," like in Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
But I swore, and I swore on everything that that joke was the first one I said. But it obviously wasn't because there's no. I saw the video, and the fact is that he says, "I see dead people," like in The Sixth Sense, you know. But I remember it as I see white people because I thought it was funny. That's the joke, right? And it makes sense to use that joke in a Scary Movie.
Yeah.
And a
There,
parody movie, you know?
yeah, there's examples like that I know I've done, but I can't remember what they are now. But the Monopoly guy one, that, I mean, I think that's pretty easily explainable. It's an old game. He's dressed like an old-timey banker, and so people create this mental model of, oh, well, yeah, he would be wearing a monocle, and so they just believe that, and then it's not true. I mean, that's easy to explain why so many people would think that. But for another one like Nelson Mandela's funeral, yeah, that's odd. There's also this weird phenomena of, like, you can blame the internet and like the wrong information virally getting out there for so much of the Mandela effect now. But, you know, this was a thing before.
Right.
Like in the 90s, there was this really popular urban legend, and people would tell it about the local person from their town, or like maybe not the local person, but like somebody they know, like, oh yeah, so and so, did you hear about that time she got that hot dog stuck in her? This is like a really specific one. And then it turns out that people literally all over the country tell that story. And it's like, well, wait a minute. It's not like there was a blog post where this was originally done and everybody copied it and started spreading it everywhere. I mean, I guess that's technically feasible because those did exist, but it's just kind of like maybe everybody just invented, or the thing about here's one that'll be a core memory for a lot of us. And I'm 34, so maybe if you're like only in your 20s or whatever, maybe
I'm 31, so I'm...
Chat, do we all remember how when we were in middle school, we all went around saying that Marilyn Manson had his lower ribs removed so he could fellatiate himself?
I remember that.
Everybody says that, but I don't know where that came from, you know? And I have a hard time, maybe the origin of that is known, but it's like this thing that everybody just said, and it didn't have an origin. We just all kind of said it. And maybe because he looks weird, people just thought that's... Yeah.
I have a theory for that. I call it JD Vance's couch. I'll tell you why. It is obviously a lie, right? But when it came out, even
it's
me
what
as a
you
skeptic,
would think would be true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your brain just made up the story to fit it in. Like, it didn't need much. And people were like, oh, yeah. I remember reading that chapter right there in the book. Oh, yeah, that's my... Yeah, and there were screenshots of it. Very believable. And that it wasn't even using AI. Right? And half of us, you know, were trolling, but I seriously doubt, they might be because, you know, it's not 100%. I seriously doubt that anybody actually believes that the JD Vance couch thing. I think we're just all messing with him. Like, and there's obviously has to be somebody that actually does think that. But I feel like it's one of those things that he just looks like the guy who would do that, right? And sometimes
it's like the Elon salute thing. It's like that's really all it takes for you just hate him. I hate him too. But that's really all it takes for you to believe that he really did that. That's not extraordinary evidence.
Well, I have other things about. I mean, it's not that, in my opinion, it's not even that he did do the salute. Like, even if he meant it or not, I'm under the understanding that he didn't actually mean it. You know, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. And trust me, this guy, I don't hate anybody. Well, that's a lie. I hate RFK. That's the only person in this world.
That's a lie.
I mean, I'm an honest person, man. There's one person I do hate, and that I wish there was hell for. It's RFK because I'm autistic, and he's always like going after us.
Oh yeah,
But
dude,
yeah,
I used to like
but
him a lot, and fuck, he just turned like
he,
I don't know.
it's that brainworm, man.
It's that brain
It,
worm.
it literally,
Yeah,
it's
but
the
like he like his record on, environmental being an environmental
it's
lawyer
great.
and all that kind of stuff, and he would still, like, if you sat down and had a conversation with him about the civil rights movement, I promise he would give an extremely thoughtful, you know, he'd be able to opine very thoughtfully about how, yes, this was deeply important and it's an important part of our history and our culture and we need it and all those other kinds of things. And he had a lot of very well thought out policy ideas regarding things we could do, like in the economy and whatever. And like 2 years ago when he said he was running, and I knew about the vax stuff back then too, from it. But despite that, which for me at the time, that was the one thing, I was like, this guy, his ideas, if anybody else had these ideas, I'd be like, fuck yeah, to front of the line. And then just more and more, he just kept getting so much worse and worse. And then I was like, oh, fucking Christ.
And then he's like, nobody should listen to me about medical stuff in Congress. And you're like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's an honest thing to say, but to be the head of HHS, it's like,
and say that. I hate, like, that's what I felt. I felt like I know that, but I hate that you're saying that in that position of power. Because then why did you even to get that position? You know, you could have anything else. There's so many cabinet positions that RFK could have picked from, and he picked that one, and now he's saying, "Oh, you should have listened to me."
yeah, if he was head of the EPA, that'd be like, cool.
Exactly, or housing. He has a good record on housing.
Yeah, like his, I don't think it's up anymore, but his website for when he was running had really long listed out policy plans, not just like, we're gonna do blank. It said, here's how we're going to do blank. And it was all good. And then it was all terrible. That's been my existence as a millennial ever since 2004.
Right. So getting back to the Mandela thing. So the Mandela thing, she wrote that story. There wasn't really people actually saying, "Oh, Mandela died." She's the one who wrote out that story, and then it got spread into that story. But I wanted to say something about when people. What do you think happens when people say God talks to them, right? Or they have or God, like, I know I pivoted. Do you think it's intrusive thoughts that are going through their heads, and they think that's like, oh, God's sending me a signal?
I mean, like Mike, I don't know if you remember, but Mike Pence, there was a lot of parody done on him because he said that I don't remember what this was about, but he said he talked to God about it. And then people were like, are you saying that you talk to God in your head? And Mike Pence was like, yeah. And so like people were calling him insane. And then, right-wingers were saying that, oh, so if you're religious, you're mentally ill. That's what the Democrats are saying now, blah, 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 which is not an appropriate thing to say, right? What I think, if you asked Mike Pence, like if you interrogated him and said, do you hear a voice in your head? He would say, no. What I mean by that is people just have an inner dialogue. And like when they pray or meditate or whatever, and you don't know like where your inner dialogue comes from, or
Right, that's what I'm
the thing that intuitively helps you formulate your beliefs. You don't know what that is. And I would just say that religious people, that's what they're saying their
right
conversation or whatever with God is. It's just a attribution error or something.
Those are my thoughts. And when I say intrusive thoughts, I mean that sometimes I'm not trying to say that they're crazy, because we all have, well, not everybody has an inner monologue, but we all have thoughts that just appear out of nowhere, so to speak. Like sometimes we humans just make a connection that doesn't make sense at the moment. And maybe when they have those moments, they think they got inspired by God because they were praying for something, and that's their explanation for it. As opposed to us thinking, oh, we just had a eureka moment, like a spontaneous thought. We were thinking more logically, like, oh, the brain just does that, because that's literally the brain's purpose, is to, come up with, come up with ideas. We just don't know where ideas come from, is what I'm trying to say. So they might think the really good ideas are coming from God.
Yeah, because their worldview is what is good is from God, and nobody thinks that they're evil and that the thoughts they have are bad. I mean, some people probably retrospectively do sometimes come to that conclusion with regard to certain things. But yeah, if that's the way you operate, if that's your worldview, then yeah, whenever you have a thought and you're like, oh man, that was a good one, thanks God. It's like when any team wins the Super Bowl championship national series game, they say thanks God. And it's like, if the other team would have won, they would have said that too. So God didn't actually want you to win, did he? Like in his farewell speech. It was either his retirement speech. Peyton Manning said, he ended it with saying, God bless football. I was like, the idea that God cares about millionaires giving each other brain damage is just so fucking stupid. but he's a believer, and so he thinks what's good. God has the endorsement of that too. And since I like football, God likes football, because God's an American and Jesus spoke English and Mary was blonde.
I feel like Earth is just the biggest game of telephone, and we're all just gaslighting each other all the time, and that's why we have so many problems. I don't think anybody actually understands each other. We just try to understand as close as we think the other person's saying, but we never actually are in sync with anybody, because even though we all have senses, there's no way to prove that our senses are actually sensing the same thing.
No, that's not what I do. I just try to tell people they're wrong and I'm right. So no, I don't try to understand anybody.
Oh well, I'm never wrong in the internet. Yeah. So when I'm commenting, even if I'm wrong, I'll never say that on the internet.
All right. Well, I gotta see if I can talk to a few more people before I go.
Okay, yeah, no, that was fun. I'll keep watching your content, and the Houdini thing. Thanks for doing that to my girlfriend. She was so upset.
Oh, the Houdini thing? That was you? Yeah.
But I had to explain it to her, because she's like, there's context. Okay, there is context.
Speaking of
Doesn't
context,
make it too much better.
Speaking of context, you just said thanks for doing that to my girlfriend without any context, and that was absolutely hilarious. And we're gonna end it there, because I don't want anybody to know what we're talking about. Dude, I cannot get to all these people because I've been streaming for 5 hours, and unlike Justin, I can't do this for 6 hours. But we'll see what happens.
Hi, I only have like 5 minutes left on my lunch break, so I'll just ask a question, then I'll hop out of the live real quick.
Sure.
I just was hoping you can help me wrap my brain around something. I read an analogy of what the Big Bang wasn't, or like before the Big Bang. The analogy was the Big Bang being you're in a dark room, and then all of a sudden there's light and all this matter and everything, blah, blah, blah. And the analogy was there was no room to begin with, pre-Big Bang. And it was saying how space and time was at a point in singularity before the Big Bang. And I was just hoping you could help me wrap my college dropout brain of how space and time could be something that could be wrapped up in a thing as singularity, because I can't imagine that.
Well, at least to me, that's actually inaccurate. So there can be a universe, but we know it's expanding. So you run the clock backwards and everything contracts. And then what it does is it gets to this point where our laws of physics unify into that singularity, or you could just say they break down. And so space-time, as we understand it, isn't a thing. The universe exists, but it doesn't have the properties that we see it have today. With it doesn't have spatial dimensions. Time doesn't flow. It's just a purely quantum, perhaps, universe.
Okay. My other question was, what do you think is the most likely scenario of how this universe will eventually end? Is it like the big freeze where everything is just so far apart from each other where light can't even reach anything?
I mean, my intuitive answer is just that because it's expanding, it's just going to keep doing that until eventually what's going to what would happen in that case is there's actually something about this that's very weird. Eventually, everything would expand so far apart and particles would break down and decay that eventually the universe, even if it had any matter in it, the matter would be so diffuse and the expansion would be so fast that no particles would ever interact with any other particles.
Right.
Now, what's weird about that is the universe, the particles would be in motion and the universe would be expanding. But because nothing would ever happen apart from the movement, then a universe like that is a universe where time exists, but it's like it's irrelevant because it would describe literally nothing but motion. And then what could eventually happen is every particle may just decay into energy. And then you just have a universe that isn't composed of any particles. And then it's like, well, is this different from the universe not even existing? I don't know.
Right.
for something eerie. Made of stuff that has thoughts, it isn't. But
right. Awesome. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Oh, Chaos Index has been waiting the second longest.
Hi. I just wanted to say something about a specific chatter, Saturn 5 or Saturn V.
Yeah, they're a flat. They have not requested to come up. Yeah, they've been blowing up all this.
I am so sure they are an AI, and I think you should ban them because they're following who they're following and who's following them. It's a bunch of bots. They've been repeating messages that make no sense, and they haven't been answering questions. I'm like so sure that they're an AI. So.
I don't know. Yeah, I just invited them up.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. And no. Yeah. Yeah, they're just wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, okay. That's all I wanted to say. So.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Right.
Yeah, shit, I always forget. On the phone, when you click disconnect, you have to click another button. On the desktop, they disconnect instantly, so I accidentally slam the door on people all the time, and I don't mean to. My jaw literally hurts from talking. This is Angel, isn't it?
Hello?
Dude, I don't have an hour. I don't know. This isn't...
How's it going?
It's going fine.
Okay, good. Now your thing says there's no evidence for God.
Yes, it does say that.
Oh yeah. Where science gives us clear evidence for God.
Well, no, God is supernatural, so you can't have scientific evidence of God. You
Well, the
can't
Bible tells.
you can't form a God hypothesis because God could be any possible sort of way, which means no hypothesis nullifies the existence, or failed hypothesis could nullify the existence of God, but also God's works aren't natural, so they're not subject to scientific testing. And I do think the Christian God is disprovable, certainly.
Can I make my argument real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you. But what I was saying is that the Bible tells us, for instance, that in the beginning was the Word was God. That's the logos, the mind of God. Well, that's what science tells us. Science tells us that a transcendent mind and consciousness had to precede all physical existence. And this goes from Donald Hoffman's interface theory of perception, Gödel's incompleteness theorem. That's why Gödel was a Platonist who believed in God. If you look at the founders of quantum mechanics, Max Planck said the mind is the matrix of all matter. Erwin Schrödinger said, who gave us the Schrödinger equation, that consciousness can't be described in physical terms, that consciousness is fundamental. They understood that consciousness had to ground all things. If you look at Gödel's incompleteness theorem, it says the Gödel sentence G is true but unprovable with an S. What that's telling you that every physical system that's described by mathematics contains things that make it true, that's true but unprovable within S, within the system itself.
Is God describable with mathematics?
Let me finish. That is true and unprovable within S. So how do you know G is true if you can't prove it through an algorithm or any mathematical system? Well, you need a transcendent mind that understands G is true but unprovable within S. So you have to have a transcendent mind, just as the Bible says, just as Max Planck said.
Literally an argument from incredulity. It's literally an argument from ignorance.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Even
there's a
even
thing
Stephen
that
Hawking,
there's a quantity.
Even Stephen Hawking said. Even Stephen
No,
Hawking
you don't.
said.
You don't get to quote 9 people in a row and not let me respond. You don't. You said that there is a fundamental set of information that is unknowable. Therefore, God's mind is the explanation for how that comes about.
I didn't say it's unknowable. I didn't say it's unknowable. I said we can know it. We know something is true. It's a transcendent, unprovable truth. And the only way you know this thing is true is because an intelligent mind and transcendent mind knows that it's true. It transcends any physical system.
What about anything you've talked about logically leads to an eternal mind? All you told me is Gödel's incompleteness theorem.
Yeah,
it proves that there are things we can't know, therefore a transcendent mind, because only a transcendent mind could do that?
Yes, only a transcendent mind must precede all physical systems, because all physical systems described by mathematics is held together by things that are true but unprovable within the system itself.
I will grant you that natural and physical things have that problem. Why is it? What is the evidence or the logic or the reasoning or whatever that is leading you to claim that God, a transcendent mind, creates that kind of reality?
Listen, consciousness is all the fundamental thing that exists. It reduces down to first principles. I think, therefore I am. It's more parsimonious. You don't need all this stuff. When you're dealing with naturalism, you in a crapshoot. It could be loop quantum gravity, string theory, holographic duality. It could be the universe, a hologram, universe in every black hole. How did low entropy condition of the universe come? What are quantum fields and operators in quantum fields? What is the quantum state? You all over the place if you talk about naturalism. You can't
You
explain
quote mined
anything.
9 people and have changed the subject 11 times.
You don't have anything knowable if you're a naturalist, because anything could be true. I could tell you that. I could say, is there a race of advanced humans inside Europa simulating the universe on a quantum computer? You have to say that's possible, because you don't. From a naturalist standpoint, you don't have any truth about anything. You have no ontology of truth about anything.
Didn't know how to spell his name. Okay. Gödel's incompleteness theorem. You stupid fucking computer. I just got the notification that I'm not doing original content anymore. Okay. Man, if I could type anything. Theorem. Says there is information that can't be proven, known. What known?
No, not that it can't be known. The information, the truthfulness can be known by an intelligent mind, and a mind that transcends a physical system. Any physical system is going to attain unprovable truth, transcendent truth. But the system itself can't know that it's true. You can't do it through any sort of mathematics or algorithm. It's a mind. This is why Stephen Hawking gave a lecture, Gödel and the End of Physics. And if you don't want to believe me, listen to Roger Penrose. Real quick, a few seconds of Roger Penrose if you don't want to believe me.
Yeah,
okay. What Gödel shows that if you have such a system, then you can construct a statement of the very kind that it's supposed to look at, a mathematical statement, and you can see by the way it's constructed and what it means that it's true, but not provable by the rules that you've been given. It depends on your trust in the rules. Do you believe that the rules only give you truth? If you believe the rules only give you truth, then you believe this other statement is also true. I found this absolutely mind-blowing. When I saw this, it blew my mind.
This is just Gödel's incompleteness theorem.
It blew his mind. Why did it blow his mind? You know why it blew his mind? Because it shows that there has to be something that transcends the system. And
that's weird because Roger Penrose is an atheist. So if what you're saying is true, then he would have converted to theism, but he didn't do that.
But you know what Penrose says now? He says that consciousness doesn't exist in the brain because of Gödel's theorem. He said consciousness has to transcend the brain because of Gödel's theorem. So
that doesn't mean therefore God.
So what he's saying is exactly what Max Planck said, exactly what Erwin Schrödinger said, exactly what Niels Bohr said. Niels Bohr said everything that we regard as real was created by things that are not real. He mentioned Hebrews 11:3 when it said the word of God framed the world, so things that are seen were made by things that do not appear. He's quoting right from the Bible. Right from the Bible. You believe in this nonsense naturalism that can't explain anything. Which was true.
It explains literally everything that we can observe.
Which is true. Hold on. Which is true? Is it true? Luke quantum gravity true? Is string theory true? Is holographic duality true?
No idea.
Which one explains the universe?
I don't know.
Of course you don't know. Because atheism has no truth, no ontology.
Do you know? Do you know which one of those is true?
You're not grounded in any truth. You swimming up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. If you're an atheist, you swimming up Schitt's Creek.
Okay, Angel, are you a naturalist?
Am I what?
Naturalist?
No.
Okay, Peterson doesn't know if loop quantum gravity is true because he's a naturalist. Angel is not a naturalist. Do you know if loop quantum gravity is true?
What I'm saying is...
Do you know if loop quantum gravity is true?
That doesn't matter.
Okay, Angel does not know that loop quantum gravity is true, or that would really be if. Therefore, Angel does not have a unique or useful epistemology. Okay.
If you're an atheist, you're up shit's creek without a paddle.
Okay,
Listen,
Peterson is up
listen,
Schitt's Creek. What's
yeah,
your
without
next?
a
What's your
paddle.
next argument?
Listen, what I said that my position is parsimonious. I only have to appeal to
You
first
invoke the
principles.
most complex imaginable thing. It is not parsimonious.
I only have to appeal to one thing, my consciousness. I think, therefore I am. That's the only thing I need to know, that everything comes from consciousness. We had a breath of life from God, so we come from consciousness, from the mind of God, the logos. If you're an atheist, you don't know any truth about anything because it's a crapshoot.
Okay, Angel. I think,
It's a
therefore
crapshoot.
I am. I also think God doesn't exist. How do you deal with
It's a
this?
crapshoot. Atheism is this. This is why,
Angel,
like,
you need to engage with what I'm saying instead of just preaching. I think, therefore I am. I also think God doesn't exist. Now what?
This is why there's more people that believe Bigfoot exists than are atheists. Atheists is so illogical.
Yeah, there's only so many smart
ridiculous.
people in the world.
There's
It's
more
tragic,
people that
isn't it?
believe- There's more people that believe Bigfoot exists than there's atheists.
Yeah,
Because
there are only
atheism-
so many smart people.
Listen, because all you do is reduce human beings to soulless animals, and you don't understand that science itself tells you that the mind has to transcend all physical systems. It has to precede all physical systems. That's the only way we know that G is unprovable within us. That's why Gödel was a Platonist, and Gödel believed in God because it shows that every physical system has to be preceded by consciousness.
Okay,
So this
run
is
me
what
through
Donald
your
Hoffman
scientific
said.
evidence of God again.
This is what Donald Hoffman says in his inner. You ever read Donald Hoffman's interface theory of perception?
I've never read anything ever. Tell me what your scientific
Have
evidence
you
for
ever
God is.
read? Let me see how do you actually read anything you don't agree with? Have you ever read Donald Hoffman's atheists are the most
The last Dustin Hoffman thing I remember ever looking at was Rain Man, but since then I haven't.
It's Donald Hoffman. He's a cognitive scientist.
No, he's an actor. He was in Rain Man. It's actually a really good movie. So what is your scientific evidence for God?
I say God exists because consciousness has to precede all matter, just like the Bible says. The word, the divine logos, the mind of God has to precede all matter and holds all matter together.
Okay, so what you really said, Angel, hold on, we're going to go back and forth. Play tennis with me. You said something, it's my turn. So what you really actually said is God exists because the Bible says so. So is that what you're going with?
I said God exists because the Bible told us the word created everything, and this is what Max Planck's agree with. This is what Erwin Schrödinger's agree with. This is what Gödel agree with. This is what Donald Hoffman agrees with. This is even what atheists.
Okay,
Roger
God exists because consciousness has to precede all matter because the Bible says so.
Hold up! I just gave you scientific evidence to support what I'm saying. Do you have?
No, you made claims. Claims aren't evidence.
No, I didn't. What claim? What claim did I make?
I wrote it. Angel, it's literally written down.
Hold up.
What are you looking at?
It's not a claim. It's one of the most powerful theorems.
No,
of
it's a claim. You have claims, evidence, reasoning. This is a claim. Give me any of the evidence.
That's not a claim.
Yes, it is.
Listen, the most powerful theorem in mathematics is not a claim. The most powerful theory of mathematics that's used in a computing and
your interpretation of its implications is absolutely
what it's
a
saying
claim.
is, you tell me. You heard from Roger Penrose himself that said a mind understanding must transcend the system. You tell me.
Roger Penrose can't even dunk. I don't care what he has to say about anything. What is your scientific evidence for God's existence?
Tell me, Peterson. You tell me what?
No, I was asking
how
you
does
what your scientific evidence for God is.
I'm telling you.
So far, we
What?
have a claim.
No, we don't have a claim.
Back up the
we
claim.
Have evidence. I didn't give you
Tell me
nothing
the
but
evidence. Then tell me the evidence.
You can't refute.
What evidence? Tell me.
Evidence because you up Shit's Creek. You can't have no explanation. You can't refute it. Why do atheists act so hard?
What can't I refute? This thing that I wrote down that you said?
Tell me, without a human mind, transcending physical systems, how would G be part of S? How would G, an unprovable truth, a transcendent truth, be part of every S, which is a system described by mathematics?
That's just the property of mathematical systems. Brute fact. That is a property of mathematical systems.
Even Stephen Hawking said, gave a lecture, Gödel in the physics, they said the same thing.
He definitely couldn't dunk, and he's dead, so I don't care.
Since you're so smart, Peterson, tell me how.
At least you admit it.
Without the understanding of a transcendent mind, that you can have the knowledge.
Yeah, classic argument from ignorance. How does Peterson know without invoking
that's what the theorem says? What are you talking about?
A transcendent mind that blank happens.
That's what
You can see that this statement is true. It's as good as any proof.
Listen to this one part. Listen.
On your belief in the reliability of the proof procedure, that's all it is, and understanding that the coding is done correctly. And it enables you to transcend that system.
You transcend that system. What transcends that system? It's
according to Penrose, not God. Penrose is an atheist.
Consciousness. You look ridiculous. Consciousness transcends that system. So the only thing, that's why it's parsimonious, because the only thing I have to posit for creation is what the Bible said, that the conscious mind, the word, the divine logos, holds all things together, and the consciousness transcends all physical systems, as Roger Penrose is telling you.
Okay,
he's telling you. He's saying the exact same thing I'm saying.
Angel.
Are you hard-headed? He's saying the exact same thing I'm saying. Are you beating your head up against that board right now?
Angel.
What are you talking about?
Roger, here's your claim. Roger Penrose claims consciousness transcends the system. Penrose doesn't believe in God. Therefore, Angel has zero scientific evidence of God. So you don't have any scientific evidence of God.
What Penrose shows is that consciousness had to precede all physical systems. He can't get around what the Bible says.
I like how you said, I like the part where you said God exists. Oh, wait, you didn't say that.
And I'm glad, because it's an atheist refuting atheism, refuting materialism. Even it's an atheist refuting your nonsensical claim that there's no evidence. It's an atheist refuting you.
You still have produced zero scientific evidence of God.
You have shit. Yes, listen.
No. You appealed to Penrose, and Penrose does not believe that this is evidence of God because Penrose doesn't believe in God.
Peterson, tell me again, I asked you.
Mm-hmm.
You need consciousness to transcend any physical system.
Why do I need that?
How can any physical system exist without consciousness? Tell me, how can any physical system exist without a conscious mind that knows that there's unprovable truth, transcendent truth within every physical system? So if you look at the universe as a physical system, which is described by mathematics, by general relativity and quantum mechanics, that means there's things in the universe that's true but unprovable within the universe. It has to transcend the universe, which is an intelligent mind.
Okay. How can any
lecture?
Angel,
go read Stephen Hawking's lecture. He says the exact.
You are being so naughty. Okay, Angel, here's what we have. How can any physical system exist without consciousness? My answer is, I don't know. I don't know if that's an appropriate question even, but I'll just say I don't know. Therefore, blank. What is the blank?
Yeah, you don't know because in your worldview.
No, I didn't ask. I didn't ask you about the limitations of my worldview. I asked you, therefore, blank.
Nothing is known.
Therefore, nothing is known. And this is according to you.
Let me answer you. Let me answer you.
According to you, nothing is known.
Can I answer you? Let me answer your therefore. Therefore, the Bible is exactly correct when it says the word of God has to precede all things that exist, because you have to have a mind. Period. The Bible is correct. Penrose backs it up. Max Planck backs it up. Erwin Schroeder backs it up. Donald Hoffman backs it up. All of these great Gödel backs it up. All of these giants in science back up exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, because
I'm standing on the shoulder of giants. I'm standing on the shoulders of the guys who gave us quantum mechanics, who says God is not. Erwin Schroeder said, I don't mean God in space and time. God is outside of space and time.
Angel.
And consciousness is fundamental.
Angel.
He gave us the Schrodinger equation.
Angel.
Do you know what the Schrodinger equation is?
No. Angel, do you know what 999 times 652 is? Do you know? Sorry, you can unmute yourself. Do you know?
Do you know what Schrodinger's equation is?
No. Do you know what 999 times 556 is?
I don't know. I don't know it off my head.
Therefore it is 13.
Look.
So you don't know, therefore it is 13. That's not an acceptable answer until I can substantiate that answer. I need you to substantiate this answer
We're getting
here.
the atheist silly season. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm standing on the shoulders.
Penrose is short as fuck, dude.
I'm standing on the shoulder of Erwin Schrodinger. You know what the Schrodinger equation is? Do you know what the Schrodinger equation is? Peterson.
Hold on.
Do you know what the Schrodinger equation is?
No.
Huh? You don't know what the Schrodinger, at the heart of quantum mechanics, the equation that governs the evolution of the wave function. You don't know
Where
what
are
the
his
Schrodinger
stats?
equation is?
Height, weight, 40, his 40 time. He's
You don't
5'10".
know
All
what
right,
the
well, he's under
Schrodinger
6 feet tall,
equation
so that
is?
means he's short.
Do you know what the uncertainty principle is? Because Werner Heisenberg said the same thing. Do you know what
Angel, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to fill in this because thing here to substantiate your claim. That's all that's going to happen. You get exactly 2 opportunities to do it. Once you don't do it, I just have to kick you out. So fill in this because
this to mid defeat, Peterson. You don't even know what the Schrodinger equation.
Okay, that was opportunity number 1. So like I said, you literally only get 2 of them. So I may be up shit creek, but you have brown eyes because you're full of shit. At least that's my hypothesis. You can prove me wrong by filling this out because what? The Bible is correct about God preceding all things because what's the answer? What? It says you can't unmute yourself for 20 seconds?
Because
there we go.
I know you want to just keep muting. Because science supports everything that the Bible says. That's why. And it supports that our mind.
Okay, this is what we call circular reasoning. So what? Because the title of this was Angels Scientific Evidence of God. And right here,
Peterson, you don't even know
right here, one of your, this isn't really a premise, but your conclusion, well, it's not really your conclusion.
Peterson, I'm standing on the shoulder
your
of the giants.
justification, your
You
reasoning
up
for this
Schitt's Creek.
therefore statement is the same thing as your conclusion. So this is what we call circular reasoning.
Peterson.
Yeah.
I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. You
No,
don't even
Penrose
know
was
what
5'10". Stephen
You can't
Hawking was in a
explain-
wheelchair, so
you can't
he
explain
was
how-
short
hold
AF
up.
too.
You can't explain how physical systems can exist without a transcendent mind. You just can't explain that.
Yeah,
How
an
can-
argument
if
from
you don't
ignorance
have-
is
hold
when you
up.
say you
If you
can't
don't-
do something,
listen.
therefore my claim is true.
No,
you
that's
don't
not
have
a claim.
you haven't given me any positive evidence for your claim yet.
Listen, because G is not provable within S. It's been shown by incompleteness theorem. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and then you
I've
leapt,
said
and
that
then
over and over
you made
again.
this crazy logic
Do you
leap
know
to your
what G
therefore,
is?
and then you couldn't back
Hold
it up. You just gave a
Tell
circular
me.
argument.
Tell me. It's what the incompleteness theorem says.
What does it say? Does it say God exists?
It says a transcendent mind must exist.
No, it does not say that.
Yes, it does. Because
no, it does not say that.
Know, hold up. How else are you going to know? Just as that's why Penrose says about consciousness. How else is you going to know that G is unprovable with an S and put G with an S without a mind that knows, that transcends? You heard Penrose himself, that transcends the system, that transcends the physical system, and holds S together because the physical system can't prove that these things are true, but that make them true. You can't use any system of mathematics or any algorithm to prove that these things are true. The only way you know they're true is through an intelligent mind that understands that they're true, that transcends the system.
Does the incompleteness theorem say that a transcendent eternal mind exists? No.
Yes.
No, Gödel's incompleteness theorem does not say that. However, some people, including Gödel himself, have interpreted them in ways that touch on philosophical ideas. So no, it doesn't say that.
Gödel talked about the afterlife.
No, these are mathematical results, not metaphysical claims. This is what we call a category error, Angel.
No.
You're saying what can't be demonstrated about a mathematical system, therefore substantiates a metaphysical claim.
You going out to what are you reading off of?
The internet.
You're reading off of Google, off of some Google AI. Of course it's metaphysical claims because it has to transcend the system. There's nothing but mind. You cannot explain, nor you can't find anything that can explain how we know that G is unprovable with an S, but S itself doesn't know that G is unprovable with an S.
Yeah, here's how this works. Angel doesn't know what 999 times 550,
listen, no, it doesn't.
556, 67, whatever, is. Therefore, it equals 13.
Let's accept that atheism is up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. You believe in you don't know.
Yeah,
nothing.
And you have brown eyes.
You at Schitt's Creek. You need to read.
And you're full of shit.
Schrödinger's equation. Look. Like what
you're sitting at the end of Schitt's Creek. You're sitting at the Shit Creek Delta with a fork in hand and your mouth wide open.
I know you getting upset, but Peterson, tell me again. Just answer my question. If you let's remove a transcendent mind. Now, how did G, an unprovable truth that in any physical system, become part of any S, any physical system, without a transcendent mind?
Those are its properties. Full stop. You can't give me any kind of account or argument that a transcendent mind would create a universe like that.
Listen, Peterson, do you realize?
What, do you want to give me the formal argument for that? Let's do that. Give me the formal argument for that.
You can't
put it up here.
You can't prove G is provable within S.
Angel's formal argument for why God would create a universe with incompleteness as a feature of systems. Okay, what is premise 1?
What'd you say?
What did you say? What is premise 2?
What you mean incompleteness as features? The incompleteness is that it needs a transcendent mind. That's what makes it.
It needs a transcendent mind. You're begging the question here again. No, one of your premises is your conclusion.
No, yeah,
you literally are. What's premise 3?
Let me listen to what Penrose says about a mind.
Listen to Penrose. What's premise 4?
Listen what he says about a mind. Listen.
How do you see beyond it?
How do you see beyond it? What is it?
Enables you to transcend that system.
It's
your understanding.
It's your understanding.
Premise 5.
It's your
the statement that you've constructed is actually staying.
Did you just hear what he said?
What's premise 6?
Did you just hear what he said? Do I have to repeat that? Did you just hear that?
Angel, this is your syllogism.
He
Just
said exactly. Listen. He said exactly. Listen.
And it enables you to
Transcend the system.
So whatever system you
yeah,
have,
the guy that doesn't
Listen,
believe in
listen.
God is not
Learn
giving
something,
an
Peterson.
argument for God's existence, Angel. This doesn't help you.
Listen, Peterson.
see beyond that.
Okay,
Listen.
so premise one.
How do you see beyond it?
How do you see beyond it? What is
A
it?
short
Listen.
guy who doesn't believe in God
Listen.
Well, it's your understanding.
It's your
says some
understanding.
stuff
It's your
about
understand-
physics.
What? Peterson, checkmate. Checkmate.
Premise one,
What did you
Angel's
just-
premise
tell
one
me-
of Angel's formal argument for why God would create a universe with incompleteness as a feature of
checkmate.
systems.
Listen, check.
Premise one is a short guy who doesn't believe in God says some stuff about physics. What is premise two? What is premise two? Angel, what is premise two?
Did you hear what he just said? It's checkmate. It's over.
Premise two is, did you hear what he just said? What is premise
over.
three?
I got, it's over, Peterson. Just admit it.
I got it's over, Peterson is premise three. What is premise four? Is premise four. Toilet sounds is premise five. What is premise six? Dropping the
Now
lid
we-
on the floor is premise six.
Now
What is
we
premise
in-
seven?
Now we in silly season.
Now we in silly season is premise seven. Is premise eight.
Yeah.
Yeah, is premise nine.
Just admit that you don't know anything about what you're talking about. You don't know basic. You didn't even know what Schrodinger's equation was or what uncertainty. You know, a simple thing like Planck constant, and you talking about God doesn't exist. You don't even have a clue about anything. And you talking about God doesn't exist. You sound ridiculous. You are three-dimensional beings stuck in one dimension of time that don't know anything about your own existence. But you sit up here and obsess about God every week, every day.
Okay, premise 10 is listen.
intelligent.
Just admit it that you don't know anything
You
about what
claim
you're
to be
talking
intelligent.
about. You don't know
And that's
basic. You don't
intelligent?
know Schrodinger's thing, Planck's constant. You don't have a
That's
clue
a-
about
hold
anything,
on.
and you're talking about God doesn't exist. You sound ridiculous. You're a
that is-
three-dimensional
is that
being stuck in
intelligent?
one dimension of time.
It's intelligent to obsess about God when you don't even know basic things about your own reality. You're oblivious to basic things about your own reality. This is your claim, Peterson.
Let's start
Support
over.
your claim.
What is your formal
listen.
argument for why God would create a universe with
Elliott,
incompleteness as a feature of
Peterson,
systems?
Your claim is there's no evidence.
I make
of
no
God.
claims. What is
That's
your argument?
It's on the top. It's going right on the top of your thing. There's no evidence of God. That's your claim. That's
Yeah,
your claim.
I
What
disregard
the
this
hell-
as
what are you talking
evidence, and my evidence for it is
That's your
you
claim.
invoked an atheist as
That's your
somebody
claim.
who presented evidence for your God, which is pretty silly.
Peterson, when you say
Yeah.
there's no evidence for God, what evidence are you talking about exactly?
The evidence that you presented. So let's just
When
pretend.
you say there's no evidence for God,
Let's pretend that the only
it's
evidence.
your claim.
Yeah.
It's your claim.
Yeah.
Peterson.
I'm explaining
you
it
said
to
there's
you.
no evidence for God.
Yep.
What evidence exactly are? Because you don't know what Schrodinger's equation is. I doubt you know what Planck's.
What I know
even
is
about Gödel's
the
theorem.
guy that said he
What-
has evidence invoked an
You don't even
atheist.
know what basic.
Invoked an
what
atheist
evidence-
position.
Hold up.
Why
Is
are you
your
talking? Like you ask a question and then you just talk while I'm answering your question. It's very bad manners.
It's your
So,
claim. Ev. I'm just.
You said, how am I claiming that there's no evidence of God? So, you brought up here the rationale of an atheist as your evidence. Well, if the atheist thought it would evidence, then he wouldn't be an atheist. So you just don't have any evidence.
I presented you nothing but scientific evidence. I stand on the shoulders of giants, and you can't.
Bro, we've been
point
over this.
to
Penrose
evidence.
was short AF.
You can't back your claim, Peterson. You said there's no What evidence are you talking about? Evolution? What evidence are
You
you talking
believe in
about that's not
evolution.
evidence? What evidence is your claim? You don't even know your own claim?
Angel, we're going to try this one more time.
What is wrong with you?
You said that the universe we have has this feature of incompleteness, and only a transcendent mind could do that.
Peterson,
So
you crashing.
give me the argument for why God would create a universe like this.
Peterson, would you answer the question?
Premise
I'm
one,
talking about your
Peterson.
prompt.
What is premise
Your
two?
prompt says there's no evidence of God. What evidence exactly are you talking about? Are you just BSing people? What are you just on here?
I literally answered that question, and I said I was only going to give you one chance. So that is the only chance that you get, and you could not give me an argument for why God would create a universe with incompleteness as a feature of it. So therefore, I reject the God hypothesis because I can't, nobody, especially nobody named Angel, can claim that the universe we have has this particular feature and God would do that. Angel couldn't tell me on what grounds we would think that that's the kind of universe that God would create. So therefore, it does not count as evidence. Womp womp. Guts said womp womp. I didn't even see that. That was painful. Like, that hurt. 3 hours and 41 minutes, huh? Good for me. All right, this is the last guest, and then I'm out of here. Hello?
Hello.
What's up?
Oh, hey. Hey, I've been watching you for a little bit here. Say about like 3 months now. I've been real interested in your stuff and you debunking flat earthers and stuff. I think it's really crazy the stuff they believe in simply because they can't even prove it themselves. But what I wanted to talk about here was a thing I've been interested on lately was if there were intelligent species at all, like alien intelligent species from other planets across the galaxy, what exactly do you think they would possibly look like? Because I used to think before, that the idea that we have no idea, there could be something beyond our comprehension and stuff. But I feel like there's a lot of factors within of how we came to be that people don't take into account when they come up with these ideas.
What would aliens look like? I mean, I don't know. It would. I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be unreasonable. I don't think it would be unreasonable to assume that they would have bilateral symmetry, or that we would see bilateral symmetry. Radiative symmetry being more common than bilateral symmetry. I mean, there's no problem with that either. I think that the way life progressed on Earth through natural selection, I mean, if the laws of physics are going to be consistent on other bodies or whatever, then I think the kinds of environments where organic molecules persist and creatures composed of organic molecules exist, then I think it's actually not unreasonable to think that... Sorry, I'm cracking myself up with the Zoom. I don't think it's unreasonable that some of the general characteristics we see about life would be present in them.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because you want to hear a few of my takes on it? So, sure. People talk about, how simple examples like the Mariana Trench, how before we completely underestimated the conditions that life can live under, and that could send things in a completely different biological line. But I think what people don't understand is just because genetically it's different, there are different types of organs in different animals, but, their essence to what they do is like reproducing or, sending neurons through your body, stuff like that, stuff like a brain, and realistically, like how, as we know, the way like we came to be had to do with, you know, the fact we can stand up, the fact we have hands, opposable thumbs, the fact that we were able to create fire and cook meat that gave us the nutrients we needed for our brains to grow, you know. And you seen what's the movie?
You went to go look up the movie. We can't hear you while you're looking that up, just so you know.
Arrival. That's what I'm talking about. My bad.
Oh yeah, the octopus things. Yeah, that was a cool movie.
Yeah. And you know, it was definitely interesting seeing that. But do you think anything based on what we know about the laws of nature and stuff would actually lead to that? And like, there's other factors to what comes with, you know, to create a advanced technologically, socially civilization, you would need to, you know, evolve things like social intelligence and empathy and things like that, obviously. Like, realistically, do you think a hive mind could create that type of civilization, get to the point that we have right now?
I don't know what you mean by a hive mind. Like, are you just
Like-
asking me, could
like
aliens...
ants. Like, could they be humanoid? That's basically what I'm asking.
Aliens or...
Yeah.
Okay, ant-like aliens? I don't know why you brought up
No.
ants.
I'm saying, do you think, because people will say that aliens, they could be, like their biology could be beyond our comprehension. But I'm saying that I don't really believe that, because what do you call it? The way our mind works and how we're able to, you know, interact with each other is one of the main reasons how we even got to the point where we did right now. You know, I'm saying, like, ants, you know, just thinking as a hive mind, I don't think they would get to our point, like, at all. I don't think that's even possible. And then like
Yeah,
our
ants
physical
probably
biology,
not.
and then our physical biology, you know, dolphins, no matter how smart they get, they'll never, you know, create a nuke simply because they have flippers. They don't have the hands and stuff to, you know, use tools, essentially, at least not like how we do. And my point is that if there was an intelligent species on another planet, I feel like they would resemble us a lot more than people think. That's basically my point.
Sure. That's a good question. I mean, I'm trying to analyze it from both sides. Like, what are the best arguments I can think for why it would resemble us, like having ball and socket joints in the arms and opposable thumbs to be able to manipulate your environment, binocular vision, color vision. Like, yeah, I don't, and big brains, I don't doubt that was hugely influential and instrumental. Like, there's no reason if humans had 4 fingers instead of 5, but we still had thumbs, could we have landed on the moon? Yeah. But if humans lacked limbs, then no. So, but like the idea that, I don't know what you mean by resembles humans, because like the aliens on Arrival, I mean, they don't resemble us at all, but they do the same stuff that we do, and I don't see any like scientific problem with that being possible, I guess. So I don't know.
They're like, they have like tentacles and they're like standing up off of them, right?
Yeah, and they can like
Now, do you
fly.
think that type of biology could manipulate the environment like they did? And don't they like?
Yeah, I mean, like, look at what an octopus can do.
Yeah, that was my one. That was the one argument I can see. Tentacles are definitely something.
And
that
we
could get to the point.
we've started creating robots that the newer robots we make that pick stuff up, they don't have robotic fingers. They have something that's more akin to a robotic either suction cup or kind of like it's like a squishy thing, and it just sort of like the way I
Like
don't
on
want to put
squids.
this.
You're talking about like on squids.
Yeah, it's not even a suction cup. But like imagine palming a basketball, but instead of palming it with fingers, you just kind of have like a soft club that can sort of wrap around it and then create tension. You know,
Okay.
the
But you said
newer.
this is a robot though, right?
Yeah, but there's no reason that a living thing that like doesn't have any bones could not have a like evolve a structure sort of like that.
Are you sure? Like, what's an example? Like, do you?
Well, if it would be
like
on a
on
different planet, then I wouldn't have an example that I could tell you, but I don't see
No, I'm
why that
saying
couldn't
like
happen.
I'm saying like biologically, like what type of animal do we know that could possibly develop something like that?
Oh, sure. A cephalopod.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like to that extent?
I don't see why not. I mean, I don't see it happening here on Earth, but I don't see why that type of body plan couldn't do that. Look, I gotta tell you, I've been streaming for 4 hours. My eyeballs hurt so bad from staring at my computer and my light. I gotta go.
All right, you have a good one, man. It
Yeah.
was
I
good
also
talking
don't
to you.
have anything really to add to your question. That was the best I can do.
All right.
See ya. Oh, man. Okay, I gotta fix. Anyways, what was the layout before I did all that? Oh, yeah, it was pretty much like that. Okay. Well, TikTok, that was fun. And remember, God exists because incompleteness, in short, we know God exists because atheists say that he doesn't exist. And that's how we know that was Angel's entire argument. The reason we know God exists is because there are atheists who don't believe God exists. The end. All right. Goodbye, everybody. And by everybody, I mean everybody except YouTube. I don't see anything going on over here. No, whatever. All right. Well, I will see all of you later.